In the very center of the imperial city there was a huge and magnificent palace. In the very center of the imperial city there was a huge and magnificent palace. Around the palace, there was a myriad of guards walking around. That palace was the core of the imperial city but also of the entire Shueyu country. That palace belonged to the imperial clan. The rumors say that there are 8,100 checkpoints in the palace. These checkpoints had heavy curtains which would need to be passed through. Only those who managed to go through all of these checkpoints could reach the inner palace. At that moment, there was a silhouette walking inside the palace. That person was walking normally as if they were walking on a normal street. Nobody was obstructing their way. That person was wearing black clothes. That man's facial expression was rigid and motionless like a mountain. That man passed through various heavy curtains and arrived in front of a pond. By the pond, there was a bench where someone was sat as they fished in the pond. That person was wearing simple white robe and looked very friendly. He was about 20 years old. The man in black clothes and the one in the white robe looked similar. The man in the white robe was sitting on the bench and fishing, looked quite enigmatic. The man in black clothes had arrived behind the man in the white robe and didn't say anything. An instant later, the man in the white robes who was fishing suddenly started shaking, especially his hand, and with a quick pull he suddenly pulled a silver fish out of the water, which landed next to him in his bamboo basket. The fish was about half a kilo. The way the man in white robes had caught that fish was both graceful and elegant. Immediately after that, a big smile had appeared on his face. "Nan Shan, come, sit down," said the young man in white robes to the man in black clothes while smiling warmly. "Your Majesty," said Nan Shan while bowing. He didn't sit down. "Nan Shan, I haven't seen you in a while. What brings you here?" He smiled Nan Shan while nodding his head and then said, "Your Majesty, Chu Zhanpeng and Luo Shui are here. The holy courtyard of Shueyu is about to be inaugurated, so this is not at all surprising. You probably haven't come only to tell me this." The young man still had a warm and friendly smile on his face, but he also looked very wise. His Majesty has a sixth sense and can see the future with supernatural accuracy. Today, Qing Xian's restaurant was destroyed. I also met with two very interesting people. Qing Xian's restaurant. Her restaurant is quite a nice place to go. Nan Shan, Qing Xian is not a small girl anymore. When do you intend to marry her? I will gladly arrange for your wedding. The young man didn't seem to be interested in what Nan Shan was saying. He rather changed the subject and started talking about Nan Shan's private life. The young man in black clothes looked grateful. His Majesty always unconsciously moved the hearts of other people. He was indeed a very kind man. Qing Xian was the woman he liked, so if the young man approved their union, the woman's family had no choice but to accept it, no matter how illustrious they were. Therefore, the young man's sentence had been enough to make Nan Shan's heart beat faster with joy. But Nan Shan thought that it wasn't the right moment to talk about his wedding. "Your Majesty, today, Duan Yu went to Qing Xian's restaurant. She acted childishly and made a scene, and when she came across a 16-year-old young man, he slapped her." "Huh?" The young man smiled and said, "Well, that is a funny and interesting story. People who would dare slap her outside of the imperial city are indeed rare. I am sure that Duan Lai helped her to deal with this situation. It is also unlikely that Qing Xian watched with folded arms, right?" "Your Majesty, you are right. Everybody got involved, but in the end, it wasn't enough and the restaurant ended up being destroyed. I also had to escape with Qing Xian. There was a young teenager of the Xian Qi layer." Nan Shan smiled, which made the young man look even more interested in his story. The young man then said, "A teenager of the Xian Qi layer. It's impossible. What clan could he be from?" "Your Majesty, I didn't express myself clearly. There was indeed a teenager of the Xian Qi layer, but it was a young girl. She is extremely beautiful. She looks very delicate, innocent and graceful. The clan she comes from. Nan Shan was deliberately trying to make his story sound more interesting, which made the young man laugh. The young man then said, Nan Shan, you know how to keep me in suspense, but that young girl of the Xian Qi layer, what is her social status? I really don't know. I've never seen her before, but I think that your majesty will definitely be more interested in that young man. Oh, the young man was really curious at that moment. Who could be more interesting than a young girl of the Xian Qi layer? What's his name? Lin Feng, replied the man in black clothes. Lin Feng, whispered the young man. On the day when the Yunhai sect was destroyed, one of the disciples was saved, and I'm pretty sure his name was Lin Feng. Indeed. That's him. The story of his life is even more interesting, said the man in black clothes, keeping the young man in suspense. Tell me, said the young man with excitement flashing in his eyes. Lin Feng is from Yangzhou City, said the man in black clothes. Yangzhou City. Lin Feng, repeated the young man in a low voice. He thought for a few seconds and then his face became rigid. His eyes were sparkling and then he said, her son. Indeed. Her son, nodded the man in black clothes. The young man seemed fascinated and then said, I'm indeed really interested in him. Please tell me more. By the way, Nan Shan, you should not tell too many people about this. Your Majesty, I know what to do, replied Nan Shan while smiling. Lin Feng didn't know that people were talking about him at that moment. One important thing was that Lin Feng didn't have a social status in Yangzhou City or in the Imperial City. He was just an ordinary person with no powerful background to protect him. The four of them got out of the carriage and were looking at the gigantic Celestial Academy. There were many cultivators walking by. Most of them looked excited and incredibly arrogant. The name of the academy was written in huge, bold and flamboyant cursive calligraphy at the entrance of the city. Under the arch of the entrance gate. There were some old men sitting on chairs and had tables in front of them. On the tables, they had ink and brushes. People who arrived next to them gave them a letter which the old man signed. After that, the cultivators happily entered the Celestial Academy. Reawar. At that moment, a ferocious beast roared which drew the attention of many people. Everybody turned around and saw a woman in red robes sitting on a ferocious beast. That ferocious beast was a brown goblin lion. Its hair was thick and looked like flames. Its roaring sufficed to make anyone feel intimidated. Sitting on a ling-level ferocious beast. How imposing. Some people were amazed. Some of them looked jealous, some others looked envious. Zhongling. At that moment, an illusion flew through the air and arrived behind the woman in red robes. A moon wolf, another ferocious beast of the ling level. The eyes of the people in the crowd shrank. They could only see a young man sitting on the back of that ferocious beast. The young man was about 16 years old. The Celestial Academy really deserves its reputation. Everyone was astonished. Even though the Celestial Academy wasn't well known in the Imperial City, its reputation was obvious at that moment. It was also known for accepting only extremely outstanding disciples as well as disciples coming from the best clans and families of the country. Of course, some of them weren't paying attention to the ferocious beasts. Some of the people only had eyes revealing determination and willpower to succeed. Duan Feng, it seems like we look a bit downtrodden, said Lin Feng who was driving the carriage. They could feel the qi released by the ferocious beasts. Suddenly, the horses of their carriage stopped. They refused to move further, scared of the ferocious beasts. Lin Feng smiled wryly and tried to make the horses move forward. Lin Feng, brother, I came here to practice cultivation and not for fun, said Duan Feng while shaking his head and smiling. At that moment, some people turned around and, while looking at Lin Feng, Duan Feng and the others, they said, another group of beggars has arrived. They look so miserable. Lin Feng and the others coldly looked at those who were saying these things about them. They only saw that these people were smiling. Lin Feng and the others coldly looked at those who were saying these things about them. They only saw that these people were smiling. "What are you guys saying?" asked Duan Feng coldly. But contrary to one's expectations, Lin Feng immediately said, "Duan Feng, let's go. Go and enter your name on the list." When he finished talking, Lin Feng continued driving the carriage forwards. "Lin Feng, big brother," said Duan Feng, who was surprised while looking at Lin Feng, who was smiling and shaking his head. "There are so many idiots, can you afford wasting your qi against so many idiots?" Duan Feng was surprised. He hadn't expected such a funny answer. He laughed and shook his head. However, Lin Feng's words made these people angry, and they made a hideous face when they heard his words. "You filthy beggar, if it wasn't forbidden to make trouble near the Celestial Academy, I would cripple your cultivation," said a young man coldly. However, Lin Feng just ignored him. He was starting to get used to idiots in this world. "Wuxia, whom are you arguing with?" said a voice which had come from behind Wuxia. At that moment, Duan Yu's staff had appeared. "Nobody, a mere beggar, that's all," said Wuxia indifferently. At that moment, Wuxia jumped down from his moon wolf. Even though Duan Lai's status wasn't high in the hierarchy of the Duan clan, their family name was still Duan, and they required respect from other people. The vision they had of life was that people could be classified into different classes, lower, middle and upper classes. Their thoughts were strictly confined into that system. That was why they had insulted Lin Feng when they saw that Duan Yu had arrived. Therefore, they could show that their social class was lower than that of Duan Yu but still higher than that of Lin Feng. "Since he's a beggar, there's no need to get angry. Go and enter your name on the list," said Duan Yu coldly. At that moment, the mark left by Lin Feng's hand on her cheek had disappeared. Her house had enough pills, so it was easy to cure such a small injury, but her dignity had been affected and he had wounded her deep within her heart. An emotional injury wouldn't be easy to cure. One of the most horrible things for her is that such news spread quickly in the imperial city. What would other people think about her? Duan Feng arrived at the desk where the old men were. One of the old men immediately said, "Please give me your recommendation letter." "All right," replied Duan Feng and handed it over to the old man. The old man looked surprised. He raised his head and asked, "Your family name is Duan?" "Indeed," replied Duan Feng. "Oh, okay. Go over there and get your card, then you can enter the academy. Of course, some people will welcome you when you arrive," said the old man while pointing at the place where Duan Feng could get his student card. Duan Feng nodded. "Lin Feng, big brother, let's go inside," said Duan Feng to Lin Feng. Right after, the old man said, "How many people are you? Where are their letters of recommendation?" Letters of recommendation? Lin Feng and the others didn't have a letter of recommendation, how could they? Lin Feng shook his head and said, "We are just accompanying him. We don't have letters of recommendation. If you don't have a letter of recommendation, you don't belong to the Celestial Academy, and if you are not members of the Academy, you are not allowed to go inside. Even family members cannot go inside. You can leave on your own," said the old man calmly but still sounding strict as if he was giving them an order. Lin Feng had just realized that many people who had come there were of noble families but that nobody was accompanied by their group. That was probably because of that rule. Bloody beggars who can't understand the rules. "They don't even have a letter of recommendation and are making fools of themselves," said Wuxia, who had arrived near them and heard the old man. "Wuxia is right. Where are these filthy beggars from? Such a disgrace," said a girl next to him whose name was Zhongling. All the words she said were harsh and poignant. "Duan Yu, what do you think?" asked Zhongling to Duan Yu. She knew that Duan Yu was the most arrogant of all of them. She also thought that Duan Yu wouldn't hesitate and slap these lowly beggars. But at that moment, Zhongling noticed that Duan Yu was staring at a certain young man's back. She was shivering in fear. She looked strange and was both angry and frightened at the same time. Lin Feng turned around and saw Duan Yu. Lin Feng smiled, which surprised Duan Yu. As expected from people who would be your friends. You and your friends are the same type of trash. Only bullshit comes out of their mouths just like it did from your mouth, said Lin Feng coldly, which made Zhongling and Wuxia furious. That beggar had suddenly dared to provoke them. Besides, he also dared to provoke Duan Yu. How audacious. But Zhongling and Wuxia looked at Duan Yu and saw that apart from looking embarrassed, she didn't look like she was planning to act. Duan Yu was usually so proud and easily lost her temper, but at that moment, she remained silent. Zhongling and Wuxia were very surprised and found the situation extremely strange. Whose mouth are you talking about? Said Zhongling while staring at Lin Feng, when she saw that Duan Yu wasn't talking. The lion on which she was sitting roared in anger. Ling ferocious beasts were extremely smart and could feel their master's emotions. No intelligence, stupid as hell. I really don't understand why the Celestial Academy would accept such trash, said Lin Feng while shaking his head. He had humiliated them twice already. Lin Feng could tolerate certain things, but these people really seemed insatiable. He couldn't bear their ignorance anymore. A beggar like you who doesn't even have a letter of recommendation dares call and question the decisions of the Celestial Academy. You are really shameless. Today, even though the Academy doesn't allow such things. I will slap you, said Zhongling coldly. Nobody had ever dared call her a trash. That's enough. Today is the registration day of the Celestial Academy. Get lost, said the old man who looked furious. Teacher, here is my letter of recommendation. Please, said Zhongling, who walked over to the old man. She was standing next to Lin Feng and gave her letter of recommendation to the old man. When the old man saw the signature on her letter of recommendation, he seemed surprised. He then immediately said, you can go and get your card over there. Then, you can enter the academy. Don't be impatient, said Zhongling while looking at Lin Feng. At that moment, Wuxia also went to the old man to hand over his letter of recommendation. The old man looked at it careful and said, while nodding his head, not bad, not even 17 years old and already at the second Ling Qi layer. That's what clan has given birth to a good young man. Thank you, honorable teacher, said Wuxia while smiling and looking proud. Wuxia. However, don't get too excited. There are many geniuses in the Celestial Academy, and next time, try and refrain from making this Zhua clan lose face. Of course, I understand. I won't, said Wuxia while shaking his head. He then immediately glanced at Lin Feng and said coldly, however, teacher, right now there is someone who deserves to be punished. A light flashed in the old man's eyes while glancing at Lin Feng. Even though today is the registration day of the Celestial Academy and it is forbidden to create a disturbance, fighting against the people who don't have letters of recommendation is indeed possible, said the old man, which surprised Lin Feng and the others. He then added, the power and influence of the Celestial Academy is very wide. If I don't slap your filthy mouth, I don't deserve to be a member of the Celestial Academy, said Wuxia while smiling. After all, those people didn't even have a letter of recommendation and they were acting recklessly. They were asking for trouble. At that moment, more and more people were coming closer to see what was going on. They wouldn't have thought that some people would be causing trouble while next to the academy. Beggars will be beggars. They should be punished for being shameless, said a young man in the crowd. He was wearing magnificent clothes and sounded extremely arrogant. These people thought that ordinary people should never be accepted to the Celestial Academy even if they were strong cultivators, because cultivators who belonged to rich and powerful clans had more resources and more money to invest in cultivation goods. Therefore, poor cultivators, even if they were strong, could never reach the level of rich cultivators. What a bunch of trash. Only taking advantage of their power to bully other people. Apart from being able to buy extremely expensive pills to increase one's cultivation power, what's the point of being that wealthy, said a voice in the crowd who contradicted all that the others were saying. That person was, on the contrary, despising cultivators who came from wealthy and noble clans. Two more people agreed with him. Different views and opinions were suddenly emerging amongst the people in the crowd. In the imperial city, there were many cultivators who came from wealthy and prestigious clans and families. Many of them were really arrogant. As time passed, conflicts and tensions were rising between the different social classes. That was something specific to the imperial city. In other cities, such things almost never happened. What is the point of talking so much shit? A good fight would be the best way to find out who is stronger than whom, said some wealthy and noble cultivators in the crowd. There were some people who knew the Zhua clan and its most outstanding junior cultivator, Wuxia. Because he wasn't even 17 at the time and had already broken through to the second Ling Qi layer, Lin Feng, who wasn't 17 yet either, could never hope to defeat him. What is the point of talking so much shit? A good fight would be the best way to find out who is stronger than whom, said some wealthy and noble cultivators in the crowd. There were some people who knew the Zhua clan and its most outstanding junior cultivator, Wuxia. Because he wasn't even 17 at the time and had already broken through to the second Ling Qi layer, Lin Feng, who wasn't 17 yet either, could never hope to defeat him. Challenging him, who doesn't even have a letter of recommendation, is that really fair? People like us shouldn't challenge weaker people, said Wuxia. He felt secure in the knowledge that he had backing. If you don't dare, just say it and don't try to find excuses. Wuxia, just slap that guy a few times and show to the wealthy and noble cultivators that these beggars cannot compete with us, said a young man in the crowd who had already been talking for a while about how strong the noble cultivators were. The young man who was talking was wearing yellow clothes and looked unbelievably arrogant. He seemed to be about 18 years old. Don't worry, Bai Zhe. No need to tell me this. Even without you telling me this, I would still slap him and make him close that filthy mouth of his, said Wuxia while smiling. Everything's alright then. You just can't afford to make the Zhua clan lose face, said Bai Zhe with an enigmatic smile on his face. Even though Wuxia was strong and had been accepted into the academy, he still didn't attack Lin Feng even though he just had to stretch out his hand and slap him. Bai Zhe was just wondering why Wuxia had required so much time to act. Is it even possible for the Zhua clan to lose face, said Wuxia with his head held high and while looking at Lin Feng in a disdainful way. He then coldly said to Lin Feng, if you slap your own face, I will not attack you. I've rarely met such a moronic group of people, said Lin Feng while exasperated. He didn't even pay attention to Wuxia. He was looking at Duan Yu who didn't even try to warn Wuxia of the danger. Instead, she was calmly watching the scene and was waiting for the show to start. Everybody was quickly going to learn about the fact that Lin Feng had slapped her, but if Lin Feng showed his strength then at that moment, she wouldn't lose as much face because everybody would see how strong he was and people wouldn't think that she had been slapped by a random nobody. Moronic? The crowd found Lin Feng intriguing and were getting more and more interested. Wuxia, the one you called a beggar has just called you a moron. Wuxia, seems like you're intimidated by this young man, said another voice. These brutal comments had made Wuxia look angrier. Not only I will slap your face but I will slap their faces too. I will teach you and your friends a good lesson, said Wuxia looking at Meng Qing and Jing Yun. This had made Lin Feng furious. He didn't like provoking people but people always decided to provoke him. Why did these nobles always look down on those they thought were weaker than themselves? Are you still not done talking utter nonsense, said Lin Feng coldly making Wuxia even more enraged. His body shivered, he raised his hand with the palm of his hand wide open. The qi emerging out of it created a whirlwind in the air. He swung his hand directly towards Lin Feng. Such a strong slap sufficed to send anyone flying on impact. A cold and indifferent smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. He raised his hand as fast as a lightning and stopped Wuxia's hand halfway. Huh, said Wuxia surprised. That guy was not weak if he was able to stop his hand like that. Do you think that using all your strength to block a slap is useful, said Wuxia coldly. Suddenly, flames emerged from his body. Immediately, he opened his mouth and spat out fire. Suddenly, the flames began to rush straight towards Lin Feng. What a strange skill, said the crowd surprised. Lin Feng was definitely unlucky and it didn't look good for him if he took this surprise attack. But at that moment, Lin Feng used his other hand to carry out an attack. An incredibly strong qi emerged out of his palm and moved straight towards Wuxia's flames, extinguishing them and then continuing towards Wuxia. Immediately, Wuxia retrieved his other hand and then joined both his hands to release an incredibly powerful flame which moved straight towards Lin Feng's attack. The air was hot and heavy but Wuxia's eyes were ice cold. He had greatly underestimated Lin Feng and had been forced to use his full power to protect himself. But Lin Feng's had attacked again. Even though Wuxia had blocked Lin Feng's first slap, his eyes were wide open and fixedly staring at a palm moving towards his face at full speed. Retreat, thought Wuxia surprised, but wasn't it too late? Clap. At that moment, a clear and loud clapping noise spread in the atmosphere. The entire crowd was dumbfounded. He wanted to slap Lin Feng but he had been slapped by Lin Feng in return. Lin Feng had not used much of his strength. Wuxia was still standing there but his dignity had been hurt more than his cheek. His dignity had even been completely trampled over and he had completely lost face. You dared to hit me, said Wuxia, who didn't realize what had just happened. He touched his cheek. It was burning, and he had a large bruise on his face. What gave you the first clue, said Lin Feng in reply to his stupid question. You have tested my patience enough today. I'm tired of your ignorance. Get lost, said Lin Feng while raising his hand and slapping Wuxia again. That time, Lin Feng didn't restrain himself from using his strength. The palm of his hand immediately crashed onto Wuxia's face which sent him flying several meters backwards. When the crowd heard Wuxia's body heavily fall down onto the ground, they shivered for a second. That slap, how cruel. Lin Feng turned around and looked at Zhongling. She looked surprised and made a step back. You deserve the same thing, said Lin Feng. Zhongling's pupils shrank. She looked incredibly scared. What a humiliation. I will kill you, suddenly shouted Wuxia furiously while slowly standing up. Whistling Moon Wolf, yelled Wuxia. Wuxia's whistling Moon Wolf was moving towards Lin Feng at an incredible speed. It looked like it was traveling faster than light. It emitted a dazzling light as it moved and seemed like it was tearing the atmosphere apart. Animal, said Lin Feng. A bright light flashed between the wolf and Lin Feng. Suddenly, there was no light remaining between them and no sound could be heard. The moon wolf's body fell heavily onto the ground with no sign of life. That light came from a sword. It was definitely a sword, said some people in the crowd. It had been an extremely quick and agile sword attack. One sword strike and he had killed the Ling-level moon wolf. You, said Wuxia, extremely furious. His face looked demonic. If you don't want me to close your filthy mouth for eternity then don't force me listen to your bullshit again, said Lin Feng while emanating a ruthless killing intent. Obviously, Wuxia quickly closed his mouth but still looked extremely furious. No matter how furious he was, he did not dare say a word. Hee, and they are so arrogant. Noble and wealthy cultivators really are such a joke. They're not even able to withstand a single attack. Such a bunch of trash, said someone in the crowd. Those who had been encouraging Wuxia to attack Lin Feng. Not only had Wuxia not managed to slap Lin Feng but he had been slapped twice. That had caused a great humiliation for all of the wealthy and noble cultivators who had previously been acting arrogant. They had the feeling that they had been slapped themselves. Wuxia, you're the disgrace of the Zhou clan, said Bai Zhe coldly, which made Wuxia feel embarrassed at his own actions. Wuxia had already been humiliated, but Bai Zhe was ruthless with his insults. Wuxia was furious. But when Wuxia thought of how strong the Bai clan was, he controlled himself and continued to endure the torment. At that moment, Lin Feng was fixedly staring at Bai Zhe, which made Bai Zhe wonder what Lin Feng wanted. Bai Zhe's pupils shrank and he looked at Lin Feng. A moment ago, are you not the one who said to Wuxia to slap me a few times? Said Lin Feng to Bai Zhe indifferently. The crowd suddenly quieted down again. Lin Feng wanted to fight yet again. Lin Feng was starting to grow angry and impatient when he saw that Bai Zhe wasn't replying at all. You ordered him to slap me, but he failed. Shouldn't you try it yourself now? Shouldn't you show to everyone that you were right about the fact that wealthy and noble cultivators are the best, said Lin Feng, whose words were resonating throughout the crowd. At that moment, all the cultivators who were not from wealthy and noble families started giggling and laughing at Bai Zhe. Bai Zhe, a moment ago, you provoked and humiliated someone, what are you doing now? Could it be that you are scared? Bai Zhe, weren't you saying that wealthy and noble cultivators were 1,000,000 times better than ordinary cultivators? Why can you not prove your statements with your actions? Give us evidence. Show it to us. Could it be that the only thing the wealthy and noble cultivators possess is a big mouth? All of these harsh words were stabbing into the ears of the noble and wealthy cultivators. Everybody without exception, noble and ordinary cultivators, were staring at Bai Zhe, looking forward to hearing his response. Bai Zhe was standing in the middle of the crowd. His magnificent clothes could not hide the evil expression on his face. He had a gruesome and blood-curdling facial expression. He looked like an evil monster. Bai Zhe was standing in the middle of the crowd. His magnificent clothes could not hide the evil expression on his face. He had a gruesome and blood-curdling facial expression. He looked like an evil monster. Lin Feng's words had made him extremely angry. If he didn't fight, people would ridicule him to death. The fight between Lin Feng and Wuxia had made it impossible to determine Lin Feng's real strength. They did not even have a chance to seize Wuxia's level of strength. The only thing people could be sure about is that Wuxia was weaker than Lin Feng. He is about 16 years old, but he is already very strong. He is most likely at the peak of the second Ling Qi layer, and he is much stronger than Wuxia, thought Bai Zhe as he tried to reassure himself. Bai Zhe had already broken through to the third Ling Qi layer and could easily defeat Wuxia if he wished. Initially, he thought that Lin Feng was a mere beggar, but Lin Feng's strength as well as his personality left Bai Zhe perplexed. He was puzzled. For him, his downtrodden appearance didn't correspond to his personality and strength. Bai Zhe was not convinced because for him, no matter if he won or lost that battle, there would be no benefit for him in the slightest. If he won, nobody would acknowledge his strength. Indeed, winning against a beggar was something normal and obviously expected from him. Nobody would think it is a glorious thing for him to win against a nobody. Some people would even think that he abused his power to bully the weak. However, if he lost, he would lose face and would maybe be regarded as someone not worth mentioning. He would maybe lose everything that he had worked so hard to build all of his life. Are you sure that you want me to show you how strong I am? Asked Bai Zhe in an extremely evil tone. His manner of speaking reminded Lin Feng of Wen Renyan. Bai Zhe also sounded like a snake, or more precisely, an evil and venomous snake. Yes, I am sure, replied Lin Feng while nodding. Have you thought about the consequences yet? Said Bai Zhe, looking even more evil. If I show you my strength, then you will be sure to regret it forever. He, laughed Lin Feng while a sharp light flashed in his eyes. He then coldly said, you, rich and wealthy cultivators have really filthy mouths. I'm starting to get used to how much you guys like to talk. You don't need to keep talking. I have heard enough bullshit already today. At the same time, while talking, Lin Feng glanced at Wuxia. Wuxia and Bai Zai looked the same to him. Huh, did you hear that? Bai Zai should stop talking about other people. Yeah, absolutely. These rich and noble cultivators seem to be extremely strong when you listen to them, but if you challenge them, they cannot withstand a single attack. Ordinary people were excited, but the cultivators coming from wealthy and noble families looked more and more furious, especially Bai Zai. He felt like killing Lin Feng on the spot. Are you sure that you clearly understand the consequences of your actions? Said Bai Zai while walking out of the crowd. He really sounded like a snake. Have you thought of the consequences each time you called me a beggar? Said Lin Feng while taking a step forward. Sharp and brutal qi started emerging out from his body. I am a noble, I am rich, I am a member of the Bai clan in the imperial city, I am not even 18 years old yet I have already broken through to the third Ling Qi layer. I have a high status in society. I am a genius. I am extremely strong. I have everything that I want. What's your problem? Is it wrong to say that you're a beggar? Is it not the truth? Said Bai Zai while making another step. A brutal and cold qi moved towards Lin Feng. It seemed like the purpose of the attack was to damage Lin Feng's internal organs. Bai Zai used all the strength he had after breaking through to the third Ling Qi layer. I was born as an ordinary person, never had much money to invest in resources and always relied on myself to progress. I just turned 16 and I've already broken through to the third Ling Qi layer. Can you compete with me? Said Lin Feng, whose words were sharp as a sword. Suddenly, an incredible sword qi and force whistled through the air. The earth and the sky were emitted rumbling sounds. The crowd was stupefied. Lin Feng had just turned 16 and was at the same level as Bai Zai. They had both broken through to the third Ling Qi layer. However, Bai Zai had grown up in a much better cultivation environment than Lin Feng. Bai Zai had had everything he needed to increase his cultivation. Besides, he was about 2 years older than Lin Feng. The difference was too big. Such an outstanding disciple doesn't have a letter of recommendation for the Celestial Academy, said some people in the crowd who thought Lin Feng was incredibly talented. Zhuo Qiu, who was standing next to Zhongling, wasn't saying anything. He didn't know what to think. He had criticized Lin Feng about the fact that he wasn't a wealthy and noble cultivator. He had also made fun of him for not having a letter of recommendation. But at that moment, he realized that Lin Feng had many more natural abilities and was more gifted than them. Even Bai Zai had lost his splendor in front of Lin Feng. The path of cultivation is full with such events. Cultivation was about being stronger than the others, no matter what their background. The goal was to stand high above all mortals. When the force released by Lin Feng crashed into Bai Zai's body, Bai Zai felt that he was losing in strength. He said he was a genius so he couldn't lose so easily. He took a few steps backwards and released his force in an attempt to make Lin Feng's attack collapse. He hadn't thought about the fact that he was probably going to embarrass himself. Lin Feng's force was much more powerful than his. It was sharper and more violent. On the path of cultivation, apart from one's speed of progress, one must also understand skills and techniques. That is indispensable. However, of course, the spirit is the most important thing. The spirit belongs to the soul. I have a beast spirit, more precisely, a white snake spirit. How could you even compete with me? Said Bai Zai, who was oppressed by Lin Feng's force. He was not going to accept losing to a beggar. He released his spirit. Immediately, a snake shadow and 2 hideously bestial eyes appeared above his body. They were evilly staring at Lin Feng. As expected, it's a beast spirit, said Lin Feng while smiling. The eyes of the white snake staring at him reminded Lin Feng of Wen Ren Yan's pupils, as expected, as they both had snake-type spirits. Indeed, the spirit belongs to the soul, but there are some people who, regardless of their spirit, can't withstand a single attack, said Lin Feng indifferently. He used his moonlight feather agility technique to immediately appear in front of Bai Zhe as he raised a single finger. "You want to die," said Bai Zhe while smiling coldly. Lin Feng despised him that much that he was attacking with a single finger. Bai Zhe started moving his hand to block the attack and his white snake spirit followed suit. At that moment, Bai Zhe was suddenly surprised. An extremely strong and powerful qi crashed onto his body. It seems like Lin Feng's finger had become as sharp as a sword. The atmosphere was filled with a deadly qi. It was terrifying. "I cannot dare face that finger attack head-on," thought Bai Zhe. He suddenly started to panic. He had the feeling that a single finger was going to rob him of his life. Lin Feng's qi was present in the atmosphere yet was invisible to the extent that the crowd had no idea what was going on at that moment. But for Bai Zhe everything was clear, he was surrounded by sword qi. He had the feeling that he would be completely crushed at any moment. Crack. Bai Zhe had an extremely painful sensation in his hand on which a thin mark of blood appeared. He couldn't stand the pressure of the attack any longer. His entire body was being crushed and bruises had started to appear all over his body. Retreat. Bai Zhe was about to collapse under the pressure and decided to retreat, but Lin Feng's finger was still releasing even more terrifying force. "Die." Lin Feng said only word. Then, Lin Feng's finger started emitting a bright light and powerful energy immediately lacerated the atmosphere. Cracking noises spread through the air. Bai Zhe groaned. His white snake spirit started releasing strong qi. But at that moment his white snake spirit dispersed and disappeared. Bai Zhe was kneeling down on the ground. Everybody was stupefied and was blankly staring at Bai Zhe. The atmosphere became entirely silent. Splash, splash, at that moment, the crowd saw blood dripping out of Bai Zhe's head. Lin Feng's finger, how terrifying. Lin Feng's meaning was that some people used their spirit but couldn't withstand a single attack while some others didn't use their spirit but were still extremely strong. The crowd knew that Bai Zhe had used his spirit but still couldn't withstand a single attack because Lin Feng didn't need to use his spirit, which proved he was stronger than Bai Zhe. At that moment, Lin Feng was looking at Bai Zhe kneeling down on the ground. He was surprised. He wouldn't have thought that one finger would be enough to bring down his opponent, so he was very satisfied of himself. "I am still not able to completely unite with the power of the sword. Only some parts of my body can use sword force. I recently started using forces. It's not been such a long time. That's why my body and my sword force can't completely unite, but being able to use a finger to harness sword force is already a great achievement and was enough to make Bai Zhe kneel down. How powerful will I be when I fully unite with my sword, thought Lin Feng. A moment before, he had managed to make his finger and his sword force fuse together. It had been an extremely powerful attack. Lin Feng had made great progress as a sword master. He was much stronger than before and also understood much more about the way of the sword. I am still far from being able to make my body and the sword force fuse together, but I need to understand how it is meant to work first. It was clear to Lin Feng that he was still far from being able to achieve such an incredible feat, but he needed to progress slowly, step by step, so he could base his strength on solid foundations. Cough, cough. Bai Zhe was coughing blood. He was still unable to stand up. He had been so arrogant a moment before and had sounded as if he was levels above Lin Feng. Lin Feng was smiling. Lin Feng had used only one finger to defeat Bai Zhe after he released his spirit. There would be nowhere within this world where he could hide away from his shame. Lin Feng was cruelly looking at Bai Zhe. His eyes didn't express the least bit of compassion. Lin Feng suddenly said, "You say that you are a genius. You are extremely proud of coming from a wealthy and noble clan. You called me a beggar. Well, what do you intend to do now?" said Lin Feng indifferently. Lin Feng's words made Bai Zhe feel like he was being slapped. That slap was much more painful than Wuxia's one as it stabbed into his pride. Besides, not only Bai Zhe was humiliated but all the others noble and wealthy cultivators who were making fun of him. Each and every single one of them was making a hideous face. They had all been indirectly slapped by Lin Feng. Not so long before these events, they were all arrogantly calling Lin Feng a beggar. Not so long before these events, they were all arrogantly calling Lin Feng a beggar. At that moment, not only had the beggar slapped Wuxia and humiliates Bai Zhe but he had also slapped all of them, indirectly. All of them had lost face from their arrogant words. If Lin Feng was a beggar, what were they? You are all a band of arrogant and presumptuous brats. I don't know if you are even able to learn from your mistakes. These few words made the rich and wealthy cultivators even more furious. Shut the hell up. Let me fight against you, said a cold voice suddenly which surprised everybody. Rong Yan, don't challenge someone who's stronger than you as it will surely lead to death. What do you think about having a fight against me? People in the crowd were starting to argue. At that moment, the old man said, let me talk. Everybody stopped talking when they heard the old man's voice. In the Celestial Academy, every teacher was extremely strong. The wealthy and noble cultivators didn't dare make teachers lose face. In the Imperial City, there were a great number of wealthy and noble cultivators. There wasn't a single teacher of the Celestial Academy who didn't previously have a great reputation or wasn't famous in the past. After all, these teachers educated cultivators coming from the extremely wealthy and noble families. They could only be the highest class of individuals. Stop making a scene. Don't forget what day it is today, said the old man glancing at the crowd. Everybody quieted down. The old man walked towards Bai Zhe and coldly said, stand up. Bai Zhe raised his head and looked at the old man. Bai Zhe looked ashamed. After all, he had been defeated by a single finger. He had completely lost face. Everybody would laugh at him for the rest of his days because of this event. Teacher, said Bai Zhe while standing up. He was looking at the ground. He really had completely lost face. Humph, you still have the face to call me teacher, groaned the old man, making Bai Zhe turn even a brighter shade of red. The teacher despised him for causing such a humiliating scene. The path of cultivation is partially about being strong and being a good fighter, but that is not the only goal of cultivation. Another important aspect is to be strong in one's heart. In the continent, there is a myriad of extremely strong cultivators. Nobody should ever consider themselves as the strongest cultivator in the world, no matter their natural abilities or how strong they are. There will always be someone stronger than you. The most important is to be strong in your own heart and true to yourself. Winning a battle isn't about glory, it's about one's personal goals and achievements. Losing isn't about being humiliated, it's about learning how to improve yourself. Even in case of defeat, one should remain determined and not give up. Especially after losing a battle, one should be even more determined to become stronger. Said the old man to Bai Zhe. Bai Zhe's heart started to beat faster. These words were resonating in his heart like the evening drum and the morning bell. Teacher, I understand, said Bai Zhe while bowing in front of the old man as a sign of respect and gratitude. If you understand, then that's good. Please go back for now and don't forget to search your soul. Introspection is essential, said the old man indifferently. Immediately after, the old man turned around and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also staring at the old man and was surprised. These teachers were extremely wise and would benefit the students greatly. He had only said very few sentences and he had easily made Bai Zhe change his state of mind. If he had not done so, then Bai Zhe may have struggled to advance on his path of cultivation. However, even though the old man was an amazing teacher, he was still working for the academy and Lin Feng wasn't a student here. Besides, he had humiliated students of the academy. During our registration day, you come here and cause trouble. I would like to ask you, what is your motive behind all of this, said the old man while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was surprised. Lin Feng had been causing trouble. He had been trying to ignore these evildoers from the beginning. "Why do you come provoke and insult my students in front of the academy?" asked the old man again on an extremely cold tone. The wealthy and noble cultivators had a smile on the corner of their mouth. The teachers of the academy were not only teachers, they were also normally members of wealthy and noble clans. Lin Feng was out of luck. He had made the teacher angry. The students who came from ordinary clans and families knew that the teacher was trying to turn things into a bad situation. They knew that he was trying to accuse Lin Feng of things he hadn't committed. However, nobody could say anything. After all, the old man was a teacher at the academy and he was much stronger than all of them. His social status was much higher as well. All they could do was observe how Lin Feng would be dealt with after reaching the end of his luck. Lin Feng looked exasperated. He thought that the old man was ridiculous. He looked at the old man and said, "I remember that when Wuxia said he was going to teach me a lesson, you said that it was possible because I didn't have a letter of recommendation. You didn't have any objection when he decided to attack me, and now you are saying that I came to cause trouble and that I humiliated the academy. I would like to ask you, is this what you teach to your students? Unfairness and injustice? You teach them to bully the weak? How audacious!" shouted the old man. He looked furious and said, "I know exactly what I'm doing. Who do you think you are? Do you think that you are my teacher? What do you intend to do? How insolent!" Lin Feng was smiling coldly deep in his heart. Only because the old man had the strength to do so, he wanted to bully Lin Feng. Initially, the old man thought that Wuxia could defeat Lin Feng, so he hadn't prevented him from fighting, but Lin Feng had won, so that was a humiliation for the academy. Therefore, the old man was angry. "Old man, how can you be so unfair?" "The others provoked him first," said Duan Feng. He was going to spend a lot of time in the academy in the future and obviously hoped that it was a good place to study. He hadn't thought that there would be a conflict on the first day. Besides, the teacher himself was causing the trouble. "You shut up. Don't forget that you are also a student of the Celestial Academy, or could it be that you do not wish to be one of its students anymore?" said the old man, coldly looking at Duan Feng and threatening him. Duan Feng was about to say something else when Lin Feng interrupted him and said, "Duan Feng, you are also a student of the Celestial Academy. This thing has nothing to do with you." When he finished talking, Lin Feng looked at the old man and said, "So, after saying these things, what do you intend to do? Damaging the reputation of the academy is a serious crime and you should die for that. However, because today is the registration day, it is an auspicious day, therefore I will just cripple your cultivation," said the old man, sounding like he was saying something normal, but his eyes revealed murderous intentions. Lin Feng was a genius and had extraordinary natural abilities, but how was he supposed to compete with the old man? He was still young and too weak. The old man could easily cripple Lin Feng's cultivation if he wished. Lin Feng was extremely gifted and he wasn't joining the academy. This made the old man want to cripple his cultivation even more. This way, the academy would have one less rival in the future. Lin Feng might have wanted to go and study at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. "Cripple my cultivation. It sounds like a rather easy task when you say it," said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone. When these extremely strong people said such things, they meant it and usually applied what they said without hesitation. If they wanted to kill, they killed; if they wanted to cripple someone's cultivation, they crippled their cultivation. There was no way to change their mind. In front of such people, no matter how gifted someone was, if that person wasn't useful to them, then they would dispose of those people without hesitation. This world was about being the strongest. Academies, sects, etc. were all the same. Only strength mattered. But Lin Feng didn't feel scared anymore since Meng Qing was with him. She had already shown him that she could protect him. She was incredibly powerful. Therefore, Lin Feng was not even slightly worried. Besides, Meng Qing had promised Lin Feng that she could protect him. Meng Qing didn't like talking, especially to say superfluous words. So when she said it, she definitely meant it. "Teacher, is it necessary to be so furious?" said an indifferent voice at that moment. A silhouette came out of the crowd and continued, "This young man is a real genius. If he agreed to join the academy, he could definitely become an extremely strong and powerful person." It was a young man. He had beautiful long hair. His voice was soft and gentle, which surprised a lot of people. Besides, his face looked graceful and delicate to the extent that the word "pretty" could be used to refer to his facial features. His face looked even prettier than that of an ordinary woman. His name was Wen Ao Shui. "What are you doing?" said many of the crowd when they saw Wen Ao Shui. They were surprised. When the old man saw and heard Wen Ao Shui, he nodded at him. "And you? What do you think about what he said?" asked the old man to Lin Feng. Everybody was stupefied. When Ao Shui said a single sentence, it had been sufficient to change the old man's mind. "What? About me joining the Celestial Academy?" asked Lin Feng to Wen Ao Shui. Lin Feng immediately shook his head and said, "I'm not interested." "Huh," the old man was astonished. He glanced at Lin Feng and said, "You are definitely not able to recognize what's good for you. I gave you a chance, the chance to join the Celestial Academy, and you refused it. Well, since it's like that, don't blame me." "Teacher, don't be angry. I will persuade him," said Wen Ao Shui. He looked so clean. His clothes were unstained by even a speck of dust. Nobody would think that he was actually a man. "Teacher, don't be angry. I will persuade him," said Wen Ao Shui. He looked so clean. His clothes were unstained by even a speck of dust. Nobody would think that he was actually a man. The Celestial Academy is not very famous, but if you became one of its students then you would understand how great it is. You could fully exploit your natural abilities and you would greatly improve your skills as a cultivator. You shouldn't doubt at all that it would be greatly beneficial to you, said Wen Ao Shui to Lin Feng. His beautiful eyes were staring at Lin Feng. He had a big smile on his face. "It doesn't look like it when I see your teacher," replied Lin Feng indifferently. Everybody was stupefied. Each and every single one of the wealthy and noble cultivators pulled a long face. Lin Feng was attacking their dignity and making the academy lose face. The teacher was also stupefied. A murderous light flashed in his eyes. He thought that Lin Feng didn't know how to behave in such a delicate situation. He was acting much too bold and was being completely reckless. "Your opinion is too biased. Your vision of the situation is unilateral," said Wen Ao Shui while shaking his head. But Lin Feng, as before, was not convinced. Academies and sects had the same purpose even if they didn't work the same way. The entire Yunhai sect had been annihilated and everyone had sacrificed themselves for him, so his main mission was to rebuild the Yunhai sect and make sure it does not repeat any of its past mistakes. Wen Ao Shui is right. What you see is only the tip of the iceberg. "I hope that you can join the academy," said another voice. A silhouette which looked like an illusion suddenly jumped from a distant place towards the crowd. It was an old man. When the people saw him, everybody was surprised and looked at him with eyes filled with worship and respect. That old man was the vice principal of the academy. The vice principal of the academy was personally inviting Lin Feng to join the academy. Everybody was astonished. Could it be that Lin Feng is already so powerful that even the most influential people of the academy have an eye on him? Whispered some people in the crowd. Some of the people, much like Wuxia and Zhongling, were furious because Lin Feng didn't have a letter of recommendation, but Lin Feng, who didn't even need a letter of recommendation to join the academy, wasn't even interested in joining it, and because Lin Feng wasn't interested in joining, even the vice principal himself was trying to convince him to join. "You are right. There are some really pathetic students in the academy. They are good-for-nothings, but you have already humiliated them, which was a fitting punishment. As far as the teacher is concerned, he is very narrow-minded. I will make him apologize to you for his actions," said the vice principal to Lin Feng. Immediately after, he looked at the old teacher with a look which made the crowd shiver. The vice principal was going to make the teacher apologize because of Lin Feng. Lin Feng was stupefied as well. He knew that he was a good cultivator, but the academy was full of outstanding students as well. Even if he had defeated Wuxia and Baizhe, it was only the tip of the iceberg. Why would the vice principal attach so much importance to him? "Vice principal," said the old man, stupefied. The vice principal frowned, which scared the old man. Then, the old man turned around, looked at Lin Feng and said, "Please accept my most sincere apologies. I acted without thinking." "Be kinder and more sincere," said the vice principal, who wasn't satisfied with the old man's apology. The entire crowd and especially the old man could not help but be surprised at such actions. Was Lin Feng so strong that the vice principal needed to be that kind to him? Did Lin Feng actually come from an incredible background? That was hard to imagine. All the teachers were personally invited by the academy. They were all famous and extremely strong. Surprisingly, the vice principal was forcing the teacher to apologize to Lin Feng even though Lin Feng hadn't even made such a request. Everybody was trying to understand why. Why? The teacher that had just apologized pulled a long face. He hated the looks that he was receiving from everyone, but when he saw the vice principal's face, he had no choice but to look at Lin Feng, and he then said, "I am sincerely sorry. I am worthless and I hope that you forgive me, Your Excellency." "What do you think?" said the vice principal, looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at the vice principal. Lin Feng had the impression that the vice principal had something in mind, but Lin Feng was unable to guess what it was. Lin Feng wanted to say something, but then the vice principal interrupted him. "If you are not willing to join the Celestial Academy, I can propose something else for you. I can give you a special permit to enjoy all the advantages of a student without restrictions, but also without the obligations. Nothing would bind you to the academy, but you could even have a personal teacher. You could benefit from all the resources of the academy for free. You could also leave whenever you want. You would have the same status as a student of the academy without restrictions. There would only be the advantages for you and absolutely no disadvantages." These words made the hearts of the people in the crowd start to pound. They were all astonished. Lin Feng could leave whenever he wanted. He could benefit from all the advantages of the academy. Besides, these words came from the vice principal himself. He had made a promise to Lin Feng, which meant there was no hidden intention and it was not something that he could take back. Could it be that his family name is Duan? Maybe his family is Yu. Or Yu, said some people in the crowd, but if his family name was Duan and he was this much of a genius, then everybody would have already heard about him. Besides, every single person in the Yu clan was way too arrogant and would never join the academy. They were as strong as a powerful sect and wouldn't study outside. The thoughts of the people in the crowd were moving at full speed in their brains. Even if Lin Feng was an outstanding genius and was extremely strong, that still wasn't enough for the vice principal to be this generous to him. The crowd was puzzled and really didn't understand how such a thing was possible. Lin Feng was even more confused than the people in the crowd. Lin Feng couldn't bear it anymore and had to ask, "How could I be so lucky? How is this possible? I really want to know why you would give me such an opportunity. Why? It is actually a strike of luck. You don't even have the possibility to refuse because everything will be decided by you," said the vice principal with a big smile on his face before adding, "I can only tell you that I had similar experiences in my life. I was also supported by others along the way." Supported by others, thought the crowd, who still didn't understand. Lin Feng knew nobody in the imperial city. Why would the vice principal be so good to him? Besides, Lin Feng couldn't refuse because there was no obligation when joining the academy. He could go there whenever he wished and leave whenever he wished as well. How could he refuse something that was only benefits and completely under his control? If the vice principal had malicious intentions, then he wouldn't have acted like that. He could have easily eliminated him. After all, Lin Feng had only broken through to the Ling Qi layer. Maybe I really do have good luck, thought Lin Feng. He then smiled and said, my friends and I will join together. We must be able to stay together. No problem. You can bring anyone as long as you are close with them. Besides, you don't have to respect our rules and regulations, but the others including your friends will have to, said the vice principal honestly. Of course, replied Lin Feng while smiling. That's great. Then, everybody can disperse, said the vice principal. Suddenly, he stretched his hands over to Lin Feng and gave him something. The entire crowd was dying from curiosity. They didn't know what the vice principal was giving to Lin Feng. Welcome to the Celestial Academy, said Wen Ao Shui. Lin Feng nodded and then the group began to enter the academy. They walked under the arch of the gate to discover wonderful and magnificent palaces. Oh my, when Lin Feng saw these parks, palaces and rivers, he couldn't help but be amazed. Everything was perfect. Besides, the architecture of each palace had its own magnificent style. You can explore all of these places in depth during your stay here, said Wen Ao Shui. Lin Feng was really amazed at sight of the palaces. Celestial Academy. The main palace, the name of the academy was written in huge letters. It looked like it was really a unique place within this world. Welcome to the academy. You will not regret it, said Wen Ao Shui while smiling. Lin Feng looked at that boy who looked like a beautiful woman and asked, why did you defend me? Wen Ao Shui shook his head and said, for the same reason as the vice principal. What I mean is that we've never met before. We don't know each other, why would you help me? There are some people who are so mysterious that you see them for a few seconds and you instantly know that you like them. You are that kind of person, said Wen Ao Shui whose cheeks had turned red. Lin Feng stared at him stupefied by his response. When Wen Ao Shui saw that Lin Feng was making a strange face, he also made a strange face. Get lost. I'm not one of them, said Wen Ao Shui, which made Lin Feng laugh. Of course, there are people in this world who were attracted to the same sex. Some people liked that type of thing, but Wen Ao Shui obviously didn't, even though he looked the type. At that moment, in a distant place, the vice principal and the teacher were walking together on a path within the territory of the academy. The vice principal saw that the teacher didn't look like he was feeling at ease. Who liked having to apologize to a junior cultivator in front of all the students? Of course he would not be happy about such an event. Are you still angry? Asked the vice principal indifferently to the teacher. I would never disobey your orders. You are the vice principal, said the old man. He had actually been invited by the vice president himself all those years ago. Haha, no need to react that way. You should understand that I never do things for myself, but I understand your reaction, said the vice principal and then added, I did things this way for a reason. You remember that skill which you were telling me about? Go and take it. Just say that it's an order I gave you. The old man was surprised. Then, the sadness his face expressed was replaced with joy. He looked overjoyed. While walking within the academy, Lin Feng found out that some people were as friendly as him while some of the people were not friendly in the slightest. While walking within the academy, Lin Feng found out that some people were as friendly as him while some of the people were not friendly in the slightest. For instance, Lin Feng had come across a girl who had a resplendent smile on her face which was lit with innocence, yet some of the other girls had similar smiles which were filled with evil intentions. He had come across another young man whose body released a sharp and cold qi. He seemed incredibly evil and dangerous. Have you seen anything peculiar? Asked Wen Ao Shui with a faint smile on his face when he noticed that Lin Feng looked strange as he looked around. He looked particularly strange as he stared at the different people. The qi they release is quite strange, replied Lin Feng. Lin Feng wasn't the only one who had noticed it. Duan Feng and Jing Yun both agreed with him and nodded. You're right. This is because they are very weak. This is why the qi they release is so strange, said Wen Ao Shui while nodding. Immediately after, he raised his thin white womanly hand up and pointed at some distant palaces. He then said, in the Celestial Academy, there are 3 different categories of people within the academy. Each has their own path of training. This is one of the choices which you are confronted with after entering the academy. Depending on the type of cultivator that you wish to become, I will show you where to go. 3 types of people, thought Lin Feng, he was perplexed. He then asked, what are these 3 types of people? The ones who are able to fight on a battlefield while commanding troops. These are the cultivators who are not afraid of bloodshed and violence. They are the first category. Commander, thought Lin Feng surprised. The first type of training the academy delivered was surprisingly of military nature. These people were able to command troops, were not afraid of blood and had to have great wisdom in the art of war. The second type of training you can get teaches you how to become a great leader. It teaches you how to control and manipulate a group of people from the shadows. That sounds a lot like me, thought Lin Feng, whose pupils shrank. Wen Ao Shui seemed to be that kind of person. What about the third one? Asked Lin Feng. He was very curious. Surprisingly, the first two types of people the academy trained were those who wished to become commanders or leaders. Lin Feng had a good impression of the academy. The third category is about learning how to move as swiftly as the wind at night. It teaches you how to become invisible as if you were in the middle of the fog. This is the most mysterious and mystical category but also the most dangerous. Usually, people don't see them, but if they do see them then blood will flow, said Wen Ao Shui slowly. Lin Feng was amazed again. The third category was an assassin type of training. Who built the academy? Wondered Lin Feng. They trained military commanders, political leaders and assassins. These 3 categories were all that is required to lead an entire country. Who could have such a wild ambition? Could it be the emperor? Asked Lin Feng to himself. He then immediately refuted that thought. If the emperor had built the academy, why would he have allowed Duan Tianlang to build the holy courtyard of Shuiyu? However, if the emperor was really at the origin of the academy, why would he have created such a dangerous place? Who is the principal of the academy? Asked Lin Feng to Wen Ao Shui. Wen Ao Shui was surprised. His beautiful eyes stared at Lin Feng and he said, many people want to know, but it seems like the academy only has the vice principal. We have never seen the principal with our own eyes. There is only one thing that we can be sure about. The principal must be a member of the imperial clan. He must have an amazingly high status. I think that you should clearly understand that. Lin Feng slightly nodded. If it had been built by a member of the imperial clan, then it was made to train people who would later serve the country. This is precisely why the academy prefers to remain discreet and doesn't accept people who don't have a letter of recommendation. It has many students who have a prestigious background. They all happily joined the academy and to know the other students. They know that the academy is an extremely good learning environment. That is why I can assure you that you will have no regret for having joined the academy, said Wen Ao Shui while nodding. Oh, by the way, you probably already know my name but I don't know yours. Lin Feng. Lin Feng, that's a nice name, said Wen Ao Shui. He then said, I just told you about the 3 categories of training which can be chosen in the academy. The academy has a lot of students who come from wealthy and noble families, therefore a great majority of them choose the second category because they want to do things similar to their parents. They want to have more responsibilities when they go back to their families. There are many ordinary people who try to learn these skills but later on, when they want to occupy such functions, they often face a great deal of difficulties. The hot-blooded young men of both noble and ordinary families tend to choose the first category and become military commanders. The third category is the one which people choose the least. This is the most dangerous category. Nobody really knows what they do there and it is shrouded in mystery. Lin Feng was carefully listening to what Wen Ao Shui was telling him. Ordinary people wanted to quickly rise up in the hierarchy. It was very difficult to rise up in the hierarchy for a cultivator who didn't already have a specific background. They required contacts and political influence to gain a higher position. As far as the third category was concerned, it was a difficult choice to make considering that whenever an assassin came out, his life was at stake. Of course, there are other factors to take into consideration. The spirit as well as students' natural abilities play an important role in their decision. However, no matter what a student chooses, the most important thing is that he is definitely going to greatly improve his strength. If a cultivator is not strong, then everything else is useless because strength and willpower are extremely important on the path of cultivation. No matter what you learnt, if you have to fight against someone who is strong, then you will die if you are weaker than them. When Ao Shui looked at Lin Feng and said, "Lin Feng, now you have to think carefully, what cultivation category would you like to choose?" "The first one," replied Lin Feng immediately. Lin Feng didn't like the second category because it came down to fighting and plotting against people. He wasn't interested in using other people for his benefit. Besides, he thought the third category was useless. Therefore, the first category seemed to fit him the best. He could use these skills in real battles. The cultivators of the first category need to be brave, hot-blooded and loyal. Hot-blooded and brave, no problem, but loyal. "Loyal to whom?" asked Lin Feng to Wen Ao Shui. He was surprised. "Don't look at me that way." "I don't know either," replied Wen Ao Shui with a womanly expression in his eyes. "Lin Feng, I will bring you to the place where you ought to go." "And you? You haven't told me to which category you belong," asked Lin Feng to Wen Ao Shui. Wen Ao Shui looked like a girl and he obviously came from a noble family, but he didn't look as arrogant as the others. He also didn't look very brave and did not seem hot-blooded. "Try and guess." "The third one," replied Lin Feng without hesitation, which surprised Wen Ao Shui. Immediately after, the latter smiled but remained silent. "Duan Feng, what about you?" asked Lin Feng. Lin Feng hadn't forgotten that he was there because of Duan Feng. He would have never thought he would join the academy before that. "Me," said Duan Feng while smiling. "I will choose the same one as you, Lin Feng, the first one." "That's great. Let's go together then," said Lin Feng while smiling. A short time after, they arrived on a huge square. Many people were sitting upright. Some gyukins could be heard. "If you want to become one of the first category, then you first need to pass a test. Only if you succeed will you be admitted as a student of the first category," explained Wen Ao Shui while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng said, "If the first category requires a test, what about the two other categories? Is it the same?" "The second category doesn't require any test, but the third one requires passing a test, and it is by far the most difficult one," said Wen Ao Shui while smiling. Lin Feng was surprised. Most people were absolutely not interested in the third category, but its exam was the most difficult. Lin Feng was puzzled. Besides, it seemed like the first category, in which a great majority was interested, was also the easiest one. On the square, there were many new students but some old students as well. Some of the people who noticed when Ao Shui smiled at him. Lin Feng noticed that many people who passed by or saw when Ao Shui were avoiding him as if they were terribly scared of his presence. Lin Feng found that very strange. "It seems like they're scared of you," said Lin Feng to Wen Ao Shui. What was surprising was that a boy who was as beautiful as a girl scared other people to the point that they avoided him. "It seems like they're scared of you," said Lin Feng to Wen Ao Shui. What was surprising was that a boy who was as beautiful as a girl scared other people to the point that they avoided him. "Maybe they just hold me in awe and veneration," replied Wen Ao Shui while laughing. At that moment, Lin Feng and the others noticed that there were suddenly less people around them. The reason was obviously when Ao Shui. The exam is not so hard. It should be no problem for you to pass. Because the first category is the one in which most people are interested, it is also the category in which the students are the strongest. Every year during the registration and test week, we allow the older students to participate to see how much they have progressed, said Wen Ao Shui to Lin Feng in a low voice while looking at the crowd which was getting bigger and bigger. Will the test be listening to music, said Lin Feng while looking at a silhouette of an old man who was putting his hands on a zither. He was slightly closing their eyes. You're right, the test is to listen to the melody that he will play, replied Wen Ao Shui while laughing. What? The test consisted in listening to a song. Duan Feng and Jing Yun were astonished as well. Listen to a song? What kind of test was that? Only Meng Qing looked indifferent as ever, as if the entire story had nothing to do with her. You will understand quickly enough, said Wen Ao Shui, who noticed Lin Feng, Jing Yun and Duan Feng looked really strange and seemed to be thinking very deeply. In a short time, the number of people on the square rapidly increased to 200. Some of the people, when they saw Lin Feng and Wen Ao Shui, looked very strange and even stupefied. It's Lin Feng from the events that happened earlier, he must have surprisingly chosen the first category like us. He's quite strong and has solid natural abilities. He could even defeat the noble and wealthy students, but will he be able to pass the test? There should be no problem. You also saw how easy it was for him to defeat Bai Zhe and Wuxia. And you also saw how he didn't hesitate and confront the teacher. Courage and determination will be no problem for him. Everybody, the ordinary but also wealthy noble disciples, had seen how strong and brave Lin Feng was. Therefore, even if they didn't necessarily agree on certain points, they still admired him and held him in very high esteem. Besides, he had the qualities required to become a very good commander. At that moment, those who were sitting upright opened their eyes and glanced at everybody else. They looked calm and serene. All right, let the tests begin. Those who fail or miss the test start can come again tomorrow to attempt it again, said the old man who was holding a zither. He was sitting and surrounded by students sitting as well. The crowd slightly nodded. There were some new students and some old students. Of course, everybody knew the rule and immediately sat down cross-legged. All right, sit down properly and listen to the zither tune, said Wen Ao Shui to Lin Feng and the others with a smile on his face. All right, let's sit down then, said Lin Feng and the others. Immediately after, they all sat down cross-legged. All right, let's start, said the old man while starting to move his fingers over the strings of the zither. But Lin Feng's eyes stopped on the old man's hands. They looked as thin and delicate as Wen Ao Shui's hands. They actually looked very similar. Every single note emitted by the zither was harmonious and melodious. It seemed like the atmosphere had stopped. A short instant later, there was no other sound except that of the zither. Absolute calm reigned over the atmosphere. Progressively, more and more people were closing their eyes and were enjoying the music. It was as if the air they were breathing was completely fresh and contained boundless joy. Lin Feng was almost closing his eyes too, but each time he felt like dozing, he couldn't help but struggle and remain cold-blooded. Hypnotize. Lin Feng suddenly understood. The goal of the tune was to hypnotize people. How powerful! It must be a mysterious skill, thought Lin Feng, and then immediately closed his eyes. He was falling asleep even though he was struggling. He really wanted to see how powerful the skill was, so eventually stopped resisting. Suddenly, he had the impression that he was alone in the world. Maybe the skill was too powerful, or had Lin Feng voluntarily fallen asleep without the hypnosis taking effect. On his side, there were suddenly many cavalry holding their long daggers. They were releasing an overpowering killing intent, and it was clear they wanted to kill him. Blood was splashing everywhere. At that moment, blood started splashing all around him. There was even blood splashing over his face and body. Blood began to cover everything in sight. Suddenly, a head without its body flew towards him. The huge eyes on that head were still wide open in shock. Very quickly, he was surrounded by a bunch of bones, flesh and blood. The corpses were piling up endlessly. Under the setting sun, a crying woman's voice spread through the atmosphere. All these departed spirits were demanding vengeance for the grievance of their death. Under the pale light diffused by the moon, they walking around in an apocalyptic landscape of blood and death. At that moment, a certain number of people on the square opened their eyes. They were breathing heavily and were still in shock. Their clothes were soaked with cold sweat. Those who had just woken up with a start were hurriedly looking around them at everyone else taking the test. They noticed that some of the other students still had their eyes closed, especially the older students who seemed completely immersed in their dreams. Lin Feng's back was also covered with cold sweat. Who could stay that calm and serene with such nightmarish visions? Besides, the melody which emanated out of the zither strangely made the scene look especially real. A strong and intense feeling invaded Lin Feng's heart again. He had the feeling that his brain had been struck once again. He could feel the cold sweat flowing down his back. An illusion. That zither, what a great power! The melody of that zither could surprisingly make people fall asleep and have nightmarish visions out of which it was almost impossible to free oneself. How horrifying! If the one who was playing the zither intensified the strength of his melody, couldn't it be possible to make the sleeping victims go insane and collapse? Around Lin Feng, Duan Feng was still tightly closing his eyes, but he was slightly shaking. Regarding Jing Yun, she had already opened her eyes and her heavy yet erratic breathing gave the impression that she was previously suffocating. Otherwise, many other people had already opened their eyes while some others were still closing them. However, the bodies all of those who had their eyes closed were already reacting to the music. That's an intense exam, thought Lin Feng. He had a strange smile on his face. A moment before, because he was immersed in the dream, he hadn't had the time to think too much, but at that moment, he understood the purpose of the exam. It seemed like by opening his eyes he had failed. A short time later, the melody of the zither stopped. Everybody started opening their eyes, one after another. The musician looked at the crowd and said, "The purpose of the exam was to test your endurance and your determination. If that kind of environment is unbearable for you and that you hastily woke up, it means that it would be hard for you to be on a battlefield. Therefore, those who woke up a moment before, please leave. You cannot become commanders." So that's how it is, thought Lin Feng, making a wry smile. However, Lin Feng actually hadn't woken up because he couldn't bear being in that place. He had woken up because his spirit made him unable to become the prisoner of the illusions and he had broken free. Many people seemed very disappointed and were leaving one after another. They clearly understood that staying was of no use. Besides, some of them already doubted that they could become commanders and thought that their choice wasn't the correct path for them. The musician looked around and saw Lin Feng. He then asked, "You, why are you not leaving?" Those who knew Lin Feng were stupefied. Had Lin Feng failed the test? When Ao Shui was astonished. Could it be that Lin Feng couldn't stand bear seeing such a horrible scene? The exam wasn't easy, but it initially didn't seem impossible for someone like Lin Feng. After all, he had already demonstrated his strength. "Teacher, I wasn't woken up by the horrible visions," said Lin Feng, smiling wryly and shaking his head. When he finished talking, many people were looking at him and he felt oppressed by all these eyes staring at him. The teacher was supposed to have an outstanding level, how come he hadn't noticed that Lin Feng hadn't been woken up by the horror of the vision? Besides, the way he was looking at Lin Feng even looked like he was despising him. "If you really want to become a commander, don't give up and come back tomorrow at the same time," said the teacher. Tomorrow? Lin Feng was annoyed. The inauguration of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu was taking place on the day after. Teacher, let me try again, said Lin Feng with the same wry smile on his face while shaking his head. You're really shameless. You just had a chance. Come back tomorrow. No need to be impatient, said the teacher, which surprised Lin Feng. Everybody was looking at him. Lin Feng shook his head, smiled and said again, Teacher, I beg you, give me a second chance. The teacher looked at Lin Feng in a strange way and said in a low voice, Determined and motivated as you are now, it is hard to believe that you couldn't pass the test. I will make an exception and break the rule for you and let you try again today. As a cultivator, keeping face was important, but it wasn't always the way it seemed. Lin Feng had been asked to leave for failing the test, but he hadn't. Everybody was looking at Lin Feng in a strange way. Even if some people found him ridiculous and thought that he was humiliating himself, Lin Feng kept smiling and asked for a second chance. That smile showed that he didn't care about the fact that he was losing face by requesting a second attempt. As a cultivator, keeping face was important, but it wasn't always the way it seemed. Lin Feng had been asked to leave for failing the test, but he hadn't. Everybody was looking at Lin Feng in a strange way. Even if some people found him ridiculous and thought that he was humiliating himself, Lin Feng kept smiling and asked for a second chance. That smile showed that he didn't care about the fact that he was losing face by requesting a second attempt. However, the teacher understood that Lin Feng wasn't acting this way because he didn't care about dignity. On the contrary, Lin Feng was stubborn and only stubborn people persevered and never gave up. The crowd was surprised. The teacher had suddenly accepted and gave Lin Feng a second chance. On top of that, the teacher's voice sounded like he really had faith in Lin Feng's future due to his stubborn beliefs. Thank you very much, teacher, said Lin Feng while nodding his head. Lin Feng had a good impression of the teacher. He seemed friendly and easy to approach. Besides, he didn't look arrogant at all. I'm going to start playing the zither again, this time you are the only one who is going to listen to it, said the teacher indifferently. Immediately, he started playing again. However, just as he said, the crowd couldn't hear the music at all. The teacher could surprisingly control the flow of his music to make it audible to only the people whom he selected. How strong, thought the crowd stupefied. The teacher had never displayed such a masterful control in front of them before. At that moment, Lin Feng had the feeling that the melody was a river flowing into his ears. He could already feel that his eyes were starting to feel heavy under the hypnosis. He focused his entire attention on the music and tried to abandon himself to the illusion. He could feel himself slowly drifting into the illusion with each passing moment. However, something strange was happening. How cruel, if my celestial spirit remains like this, then I will not be able to fall into the illusion, thought Lin Feng. A cold qi had invaded into Lin Feng's body and he no longer was affected by illusion and the music had no power over him. Everything around him was extremely clear and calm, his eyes were wide open. Even though the melody was the same as before, his eyes remained wide open and were staring at the teaching playing the zither. Ha! The teacher was astonished when he saw that Lin Feng was surprisingly not falling asleep and was not struggling to stay awake in the slightest. He suddenly started playing a completely different tune. This time the rhythm was faster and the power was much greater. However, Lin Feng's eyes were wide open as before. He had been staring at the teacher from the beginning. He still wasn't falling into the illusion. The teacher played another tune with an even faster rhythm and its power was on another level compared to the original test. His fingers were moving at full speed above the strings of the instrument as they elegantly created the music. Lin Feng seemed completely unperturbed and unaffected. A short moment after, the teacher smiled as he started playing slower and finally stopped. He then looked at Lin Feng and asked, "What's your name?" "Lin Feng. It seems that you didn't fail the test originally." "Congratulations on passing the test," said the teacher. The crowd was stunned. Lin Feng had passed the test. Why and how was that even possible? Why hadn't Lin Feng been hypnotized even though the teacher had played for him? What did that mean? Thank you for having given me a second chance, teacher, replied Lin Feng with a big smile on his face. If the teacher hadn't given him a second chance, he would have had no other solution. Teacher, what does that mean? He woke up from the dream the first time. Why did he pass? Besides, he insolently asked for a second chance. How could you let him pass after being so shameless? Asked a tall and robust guy walking towards the teacher. The thing that you do not understand is that during the first test he hadn't fully fallen into my illusion and could not be fully hypnotized. He had just closed his eyes and fallen into a very light sleep. At most it would have only given him a brief look into the illusion, and he was never under its control. The second time, he wasn't even affected by the melody and stayed awake the whole time even when I increased the strength of the melody. This is the first time I have seen such a remarkable display, and I have been working in the academy for many years, said the teacher while smiling and shaking his head. He wasn't affected by the melody, asked the people in the crowd stupefied. They were strangely looking at Lin Feng wondering if he was even a human being. When Ao Shui couldn't imagine it either. He was really puzzled at how Lin Feng had rejected the hypnosis. The tall and robust guy's eyes were wide open. Immediately after, he scratched his head and walked towards Lin Feng before saying, I'm sorry. I said unpleasant things about you without thinking. I have misunderstood you. If you are angry at me, then please tell me what I can do for you to forgive me. Lin Feng raised his head and saw the huge guy standing before him. Lin Feng wasn't angry at him. That guy was really huge though, almost as big as Han Man. He was probably like Han Man and spoke without thinking because he was one of the simple and honest types. When Lin Feng thought about Han Man, a cold feeling invaded his heart. Duan Tian Lang. Duan Han. What did you say a moment ago? I have already forgotten, said Lin Feng while smiling. That tall and robust guy was surprised and then smiled. He stretched his big hands towards Lin Feng and said, Yuan Shan. Lin Feng. Both of them shook hands and smiled at each other. Perseverance, willpower, courage and strength are the required skills to become a great commander, said the teacher while nodding his head. He packed up his instrument and said, Lin Feng, if you want to learn how to play the zither or the guqin, come to me and I will teach you. When he finished talking, he turned around and left. Lin Feng was stupefied as well. He was smiling and, while looking at the silhouette of the teacher in the horizon, said, Teacher, I will do my best to show you that you did not make the wrong decision. Everybody in the crowd was staring at Lin Feng with eyes full of admiration and envy. These musical cultivation skills were extremely powerful. Lin Feng, congratulations. I've always wanted to learn how to play the zither or the guqin, but the teacher will not teach me his methods, said when Ao Shui while smiling sat Lin Feng. I'm just lucky, replied Lin Feng while shaking his head and smiling. It seems like you are often very lucky, said when Ao Shui added, now, you are also a student of the academy. I will show you where we sleep. All right. Thanks. I'm coming too, said Yuan Shan, who seemed to be very easygoing. All right, you are also a student of the academy, I do not see why you cannot join our group of friends. When Ao Shui brought them to the next palace, they quickly went inside. Lin Feng raised his head and was amazed. That castle had about 20 floors. From the center, one could see the sky through the open roof of the palace in the center. These are all rooms for the students. You should choose your rooms first. The middle is dedicated to practicing cultivation under the open sky. The palace was huge. There was a lot of free space within. Lin Feng found out that all the rooms were extremely large and had multiple living quarters inside as if it was a large house. It even had a large living area which was shared by the multiple living quarters within that room. All the rooms are the same. If you want to choose a room where nobody else is occupying a living quarters, that is not a problem. Do as you wish inside the palace. There's only one thing that you should note. Men and women all live here, so please be respectful. Besides, there are some people who like peace and do not enjoy being disturbed. Don't move yourself into the same shared living space as them until they have given you their permission. Doing so is forbidden. Of course, said Lin Feng while nodding. He didn't have any special requirement when it came to his living quarters. He hoped to find a place with a few empty rooms though, so that he and his friends could live next to each other. Let's choose this one. I want this room, said Lin Feng pointing at a stone door. Jing Yun and Duan Feng chose the living quarters which were next to that of Lin Feng. Yuan Shan chose the living quarters which were next to Duan Feng's. What about you? Asked Lin Feng to Meng Qing. I can stay with you. It's not as if space is lacking here, said Meng Qing indifferently. She sounded calm as always. However, Lin Feng was surprised. When Ao Shui looked at Lin Feng while smiling. The expression in Wen Ao Shui's eyes made Lin Feng feel very uncomfortable. Ha ha ha, that's not a bad idea, laughed Yuan Shan wholeheartedly. Lin Feng glanced at him and felt even more uncomfortable. Alright, that's a good idea. I will be able to take good care of you, said Lin Feng. Duan Feng was astonished. Lin Feng wanted to take care of Meng Qing. Lin Feng, big brother, you're truly great, thought Duan Feng, but the words didn't come out of his mouth. If we live together, you will be able to tell me at least 10 stories a day, whispered Meng Qing, which made Lin Feng's legs go weak to the point that he almost fell down. What a cruel girl. The next day during the morning at the Celestial Academy, people kept arriving one after another, but there were less people than the day before. In the Imperial City, there was a large public square where people were gathering. There was already a large group of people, but people continued to rush over. At the end of that public square, there was a huge gate which had a few words engraved, Shuiyu Holy Courtyard. That was precisely the day on which the inauguration of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu was occurring. After the news had spread, a myriad of people had rushed over to that place. Some of them were hoping to study at the Holy Courtyard, while some others had just come to watch the ceremony. The creation of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu was a grand event in the history of the country. It would possibly change the destiny of the Shuiyu country. This day was probably not going to be a tranquil one. Chapter 119, The Gathering. Chapter 119, The Gathering. It looks like the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu attracts many more cultivators than the Celestial Academy. Lin Feng was standing in the middle of that sea of people. He was wearing his bronze mask to conceal his identity. Meng Qing and the others were all standing next to Lin Feng. When Ao Shui and Yuan Shan had followed the group as well. They wanted to see how popular the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu was with their own eyes. Jing Yun was looking at Lin Feng's bronze mask. Her heart was frantically pounding. He probably had a good reason for wearing a bronze mask. It obviously meant that he didn't want other people to recognize him. It reminded her that she still didn't know what had happened to him during the destruction of the Yunhai sect. Sunlight passed through the clouds that were in the sky and shone down upon the crowd. It felt warm and comfortable. It was truly a good day for the ceremony. Look, they came out. How majestic, said a multitude of people in the crowd one after the other when they saw the valiant silhouettes passing under the huge gate of the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. They were all wearing magnificent white robes. 2 words were sewn into their robes, Holy Courtyard. The letters looked splendid and luxurious. Their robes gave the impression that they were ready to do battle at any given moment. There were hundreds of them who were all wearing the same robes. They were all extremely young cultivators. A short time later, they had all passed through the gate of the courtyard and walked towards the extremely vast public square. Within the public square, there was a huge stage which they would all climb up, one after the other. They then looked at the crowd in a cold and detached manner. They all had extremely arrogant and domineering expressions on their faces. These were the first people chosen to study at the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. They came from each corner of the country to this location. At that moment, they were standing on the huge stage in front of millions of people. They couldn't help but feel extremely proud. Lin Feng looked at them through his bronze mask. His heart was growing colder and colder until it had become completely ice cold. Amongst all these people, he already knew many of them. Ling Hu Hishan. Tu Fu. Wen Ren Yan, these people used to be extremely popular in the Yunhai sect. They were all considered as outstanding geniuses and were very important for the prosperity of the sect. When the Yunhai sect had been destroyed, they had betrayed it and sided with Duan Tianlang, and at that moment, they were standing with him on the stage and sharing his joy. Other than these three people, Lin Feng recognized other people from the Yunhai sect. They were all ranked disciples who had gratefully accepted Duan Tianlang's offer. There were not only disciples of the Yunhai sect. There were also disciples from other big sects as well. He noticed his cousin Lin Qian from the Haoyu sect as well as Lin Hong from the Ice and Snow Mountain village. Ha ha ha, Lin Rui, look at Lin Qian and Lin Hong, they're already students of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Their future will be bright and wonderful. We will become the strongest clan in Yangzhou City and annihilate all the other small clans in no time. Lin Ba Dao, Lin Feng's uncle, was surprisingly there and was loudly speaking about such matter without regard for those around him. He was surrounded by members of the Lin clan. Lin Rui was there as well. Indeed. I think that Lin Qian and Lin Hong are definitely reliable. They will definitely become the most important pillars of our Lin clan in the future, replied Lin Rui while smiling. He was extremely polite to Lin Ba Dao. These days, Lin Ba Dao often relied on his two children to solidify his position. The higher they would rise, the greater his influence became. The problem is that Nalan Xiong, Nalan Feng was also accepted. That's not too good. Nalan Feng is currently studying at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, said Lin Ba Dao while glancing at the crowd. He noticed many people from Yangzhou City, including the Nalan clan. No need to pay attention to them. Our Lin clan has two disciples who are now students at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Besides, Lin Qian is extremely strong and her spirit is incredibly powerful. Nalan Feng could never compete with her, said Lin Rui coldly. Of course, when Lin Ba Dao heard these words, a huge proud smile appeared on his face. At that moment, Lin Feng was standing far behind the Lin clan and could see their silhouettes. It seemed like they had all rushed over from Yangzhou City to the Imperial City. The entire Lin clan thought that the holy courtyard of Shuiyu provided the students with an incredibly high social status. What they didn't know though is that someone whose family name was also Lin had refused to study at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. They also didn't know that the entire Yunhai sect had sacrificed themselves to save him, and that was the person they had expelled from their clan. Haha. Today, so many people have come to see the inauguration of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. This is a great honor for me, said a loud voice from far away. Two silhouettes then climbed onto the high stage. They were Duan Tianlang and Duan Han, who both still had faces filled with arrogance. It looks the rumors were not groundless. It is indeed Duan Tianlang who created the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, thought some people in the crowd. In the past, when people didn't know who intended to create such a place, some people thought that its creator was going to be either Duan Tianlang or Lu Tsanglan. At that moment, everybody finally knew that it was Duan Tianlang who had created the holy courtyard. I, Duan Tianlang, would like to say a few words. You all have traveled over huge distances to come and assist to the inauguration ceremony of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Some of you though have come with the hope to be able to join us and become one of our students. If that's the case, please note that you should be young, outstanding, and should at least have broken through to the Ling Qi layer. If you meet our requirements, please write your names on the list. If you are chosen to study at the holy courtyard, we will provide you with the best skills and techniques. Many disciples will even have access to high-quality Xian level skills. When Duan Tianlang finished talking, many people in the crowd were astonished. Xian-level skills were not easily obtained, especially high-quality ones. Unless a cultivator was the disciple of one of the biggest sects or was very rich, obtaining such skills was extremely hard. Even in the biggest sects, disciples had to have reached a certain level before gaining access to such high-level skills. The crowd was extremely excited by Duan Tianlang's words. The only thing that annoyed some people was that one of the requirements was to have reached the Ling Qi layer. Besides, there is something that I would like to announce today. There are two people that everybody would like to see today at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, said Duan Tianlang with a weird smile on the corner of his mouth. The crowd was dying out of curiosity. Everybody wanted to see these two people. Who could they be? Considering the way Duan Tianlang had said these words, these two people were probably going to be extraordinary talents. You two, please come out, said Duan Tianlang. Everybody started shaking in anticipation. There was a person who was falling down from the sky like a snowflake, slowly and softly. The high official Luo Shui, said the crowd stupefied. How incredibly strong and powerful. He was the strongest disciple ever in the Ice and Snow Mountain village. He was one of the 8 high officials. Why would he come to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu though? At the same time, an extremely strong wind started blowing over the area. Snowflakes were fluttering in the air. Suddenly, the crowd noticed a shadow in the sky. It was a legendary rock that was flying through the air. Chu Zhanpeng. The eyes of the people in the crowd shrank. The crowd was shaking in excitement and surprise. The 2 high officials Luo Shui and Chu Zhanpeng were there and were surprisingly going to join the courtyard. Nobody would have ever thought that. Chu Zhanpeng was Chu Qing's son and the future patriarch of the Haoyu sect. Why would he want to join the holy courtyard of Shuiyu? So that's how it is, Luo Shui and Chu Zhanpeng came to join the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Thios is indeed a strange and wonderful event. Duan Tianlang is very famous and has a great deal of power. All sorts of comment were rising amongst the crowd. As expected, extremely famous people had come to join the holy courtyard. Luo Shui and Chu Zhanpeng were standing on Duan Tianlang's left and right. The imperial clan and the 2 external high officials were standing next to each other shoulder to shoulder. And now, let me announce the official opening of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. I, Duan Tianlang, am the first principal, said Duan Tianlang in such a loud voice that people could hear him for far away in the crowd. Duan Lai, congratulations, said voices amongst the crowd. Many people in the crowd then took out golden ceremony boxes. They were presents for the godlike celebrities who were present. Bai clan. Congratulations. Zhong clan. Congratulations. Gu clan. Congratulations. People were unceasingly coming out of the crowd with golden boxes and rushed to hand over their gifts as if they had been waiting patiently this whole time to offer their congratulations. Duan Tianlang had a big smile on his face. Thank you everybody. Those concerned, please go ahead and take your gifts. Those who were congratulating and offering presents were nobles of the imperial city. The crowd understood that those at the origin of the creation of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu were the imperial clan. Those who were congratulating and offering presents were nobles of the imperial city. The crowd understood that those at the origin of the creation of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu were the imperial clan. It is useless to mention that those who could join the holy courtyard of Shuiyu were extremely powerful. Those who were offering the presents then slowly moved back towards the crowd. Duan Tianlang had a big smile on his face expressing his satisfaction at the way things were turning out. Everybody knew that the next step was the recruitment of new disciples. But at that moment, a strong qi emerged from the atmosphere. Everybody had the sensation that the top of their head was suddenly under heavy pressure which made them raise their heads towards the sky. Arrow. Suddenly, Coming from the heavens like a meteor whose trajectory had the shape of a beautiful and perfect arch was piercing through the air at full speed straight towards Duan Tianlang on the high stage. "What's going on?" shouted people in the crowd alarmed. Someone was surprisingly attacking Duan Tianlang with an arrow on the day of the inauguration of the holy courtyard. How heartless! Duan Tianlang was surprised. The smile on his face vanished and was replaced with a cold and evil expression. Break! A strong and powerful sword chi spread through the atmosphere and blocked the arrow and causing it to fall down onto the ground. At the same time, a strong rumbling noise invaded everybody's ears and the ground started shaking. Lu Zonglan offers his congratulations for the establishment of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, said a loud voice which stupefied the crowd. Lu Zonglan, also known as Divine Arrow Lu Zonglan, he had come and attacked Duan Tianlang. Qi Xie cavalry troops offer our congratulations for the establishment of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. The reason for the rumbling noises and the shaking ground soon revealed itself. Far away in the horizon, the qi of a multitude of Qi Xie armored cavalry suddenly revealed itself in the air. The entire crowd could feel the qi growing nearer and nearer. "What's that? What's going on?" cried out the crowd in alarm. Their expressions were drastically changing. Suddenly, a storm of arrows filled the sky above the crowd. The scene was strangely beautiful. Everybody was stunned. They couldn't help but blankly stare at all the arrows which were blotting out the sun. The sky was filled with so many arrows that the sunlight was struggling to pierce through. Had Lu Zonglan really come to congratulate the establishment of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu? How audacious, furiously shouted Duan Tianlang making an evil face. Duan Tianlang suddenly jumped in the air while holding his sword which emitting a bright, resplendent light. At the same time, many people jumped in the air as well releasing an extremely strong qi and attacking the arrows in the sky. Numerous arrows were falling down at that moment and people in the crowd chaotically tried to avoid being caught in the crossfire. The Qi Xie armored cavalry quickly arrived and dispersed crowd. A strong wind surrounded them. Their leader particularly attracted everybody's attention. He had long snow-white hair. He was very handsome and his clothes looked beautiful and clean. "It's Lu Zonglan. How come his hair has entirely turned white?" said some people in the crowd while looking at Lu Zonglan. Could it be that he had come to the ceremony of the holy courtyard to cause trouble? The Qi Xie armored cavalry had stopped. There were about 200 of them. Each and every single one of them looked determined and majestic. They all looked like battle-hardened conquerors. "Lu Zonglan, do you know what you're doing?" said Duan Tianlang evilly while fixedly staring at Lu Zonglan who was sat atop his Qi Xie armored horse. "I have come in the name of justice," said Lu Zonglan sounding calm and serene yet extremely determined. "Justice?" said Duan Tianlang while smiling coldly. "Today is the inauguration of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. It's the biggest and most important celebration of the country, and you dare talk about justice whatever that is supposed to mean. I have been serving our country for at least 20 years, I have fought on many battlefields and I have never complained about it, even once. Then, I even sent my own daughter to all the corners of the country to find outstanding disciples who could join the holy courtyard of Shuiyu and become pillars of our nation," said Lu Zonglan while raising his head towards the sky. His long white hair was floating in the wind. "I dedicated my life to the country. I am the commander of the army of Qi Xie cavalry, and you, Duan Tianlang, asked me to lend you my army which I naively did. You then united with other large sects and used my Qi Xie cavalry to go and annihilate the Yunhai sect, the sect which made me into the man that I am today, the sect that trained me and cared for me. In one day, you exterminated all of them and left an unceasingly flowing river of blood behind you, and then, you dare say you don't know what I mean by justice," said Lu Zonglan while slowly turning his head towards Duan Tianlang. Lu Zonglan's words were filled with a sharp coldness. When the crowd heard Lu Zonglan's words, they sighed with emotion. The imperial clan was indeed cruel. Lu Zonglan was an amazing person. He was a hero of the nation, and surprisingly, the imperial clan had ordered the destruction of his sect, the Yunhai sect. Nobody would have thought that Duan Tianlang was capable of such a thing. The Yunhai sect disobeyed the order of the imperial clan and refused to send some of its disciples to the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. This is what happens when one disobeys imperial orders. Therefore, the destruction of the Yunhai sect was a logical punishment for its defiance. Besides, today, you dare enter the imperial city with the Qi Xia armored cavalry and cause trouble at the inauguration ceremony of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. This is a serious offense, said Duan Tianlang while glancing at Lu Zonglan coldly. He then added on the same ice-cold tone, besides, making the Qi Xia armored cavalry rebel against the imperial clan is another serious crime. Rebel against the imperial clan, the crowd was stupefied. Duan Tianlang was suddenly accusing Lu Zonglan of being a rebel. However, Duan Tianlang and the ones close to him looked calm and didn't seem too affected by the series of events. So, asking for justice is a crime. I see. I, Lu Zonglan, have a clear conscience and have nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to the imperial clan. However, I feel ashamed for my sect, for my brothers and sisters who died. With our general until death, shouted the cavalry on their Qi Xia armored horses in unison. They had voluntarily followed their general. They were fearlessly defying death. When the crowd heard the voice of the troops filled with righteous ardor and expressing loyalty to their general, they were all moved. The scene was so tragic and touching. What is the point in living such a life, said Wen Ao Shui in the middle of the crowd. His eyes were filled with sorrow. He looked heartbroken. Lin Feng was standing next to Wen Ao Shui. Under his bronze mask, his eyes were sparkling. Lu Zonglan had come to the imperial city with his army of Qi Xia armored cavalry. He had come to fight for justice, but it was also clear to him that he could die at any moment. Lu Zonglan took a deep and desolate breath and glanced at every single member of his army. Since it's this way, today is going to be our last battle. Too bad that we're on that square in the imperial city and not on a battlefield, said Lu Zonglan while grabbing his bow. He then put an arrow in it and aimed at Duan Tianlang. However, Duan Tianlang looked extremely calm and peaceful. He even had an evil smile on the corner of his mouth. At the same time, many strong cultivators moved towards Duan Tianlang's side at the same time and released some intensely powerful qi which seemed to be lacerating the atmosphere. The situation was explosive. A great war was about to break out. "Wait, wait," shouted someone in the crowd. Immediately after, a silhouette started walking out of the crowd. That person was wearing a bronze mask. It was impossible to see their expression. Lu Zonglan glanced at him and was about to attack him when he recognized the bronze mask. He was stupefied. He put his bow down. "That's him." Lin Feng had prevented Lu Zonglan from crippling his own cultivation in the Yunhai sect. Back then, he had understood that that person who was wearing a bronze mask had been Lin Feng. Therefore, at that moment, he was able to recognize him. The entire Yunhai sect had sacrificed themselves to protect and save Lin Feng's life. "This has nothing to do with you. Get lost," said Lu Zonglan coldly. As if Lin Feng hadn't heard Lu Zonghan, he calmly shook his head and said, "General, let bygones be bygones. We cannot bring them back now. Why bother and come to the imperial city?" "For justice," replied Lu Zonglan. He wouldn't have thought that Lin Feng would appear and start talking. Lu Zonglan was already starting to be puzzled by this dilemma. Justice? But what is justice for the general is in other people's eyes considered as suicide. You just look like a general who wants to die, nothing more. If justice is what you think it is, then it's worthless, replied Lin Feng while shaking his head. He started moving towards Lu Zonglan. Lin Feng then stood next to him and glanced at Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang, today is the inauguration of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. May I ask some questions? Duan Tianlang wouldn't have thought that Lin Feng would appear on that day. Considering that it was the inauguration day of the courtyard, he had to handle things cleanly and properly. Thus, he couldn't refuse and then said, "Go ahead." The holy courtyard of Shuiyu, why is it called the holy courtyard? Because we want it to be a pure and holy place, a place where morally elevated people come to become great cultivators. People who are chosen to study at the courtyard should also have pure souls, replied Duan Tianlang. I see, said Lin Feng while slightly nodding. He then pointed at the crowd and said, in the middle of the crowd, there are people from the Haoyu sect, from the Ice and Snow Mountain Village as well as people from the Yunhai sect which you destroyed. Now you are saying that you want these people to rebel against their own sects to join the holy courtyard of Shuiyu for the sake of purity and moral values. Is that right? When Lin Feng finished talking, a complete silence invaded the entire area. Duan Tianlang was stunned. A moment ago, you used the word rebel in a negative way, but the Yunhai sect disciples who followed you after you destroyed their sect, are they not rebels of the Yunhai sect as well? But no, according to your logic, these rebels are considered as pure and holy because they joined the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. That's a weird contradiction, said Lin Feng to Duan Tianlang, who remained silent. Duan Tianlang opened his mouth but no words came out. Lin Feng's poignant words made him speechless. Lin Feng didn't care about Duan Tianlang's facial expression and continued talking. Duan Tianlang, I really don't know if you are the one who chose the name, Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu, or if it was someone else. Lin Feng didn't care about Duan Tianlang's facial expression and continued talking. Duan Tianlang, I really don't know if you are the one who chose the name, Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu, or if it was someone else. Of course it is my idea, replied Duan Tianlang immediately. He wanted to kill Lin Feng. He was evilly staring at him. What a skillful manipulator, thought members of the crowd as they watched the scene unfold. Lin Feng had just said that the holy courtyard of Shuiyu didn't deserve such a name as it was recruiting rebels. Duan Tianlang was unable to refute Lin Feng's words, which obviously made the crowd agree with Lin Feng. Lin Feng had just asked him whose idea it was to call it the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. He obviously knew that Duan Tianlang would reply that it was his, saying anything else would have been making the ones above him bear the responsibility for that, and he didn't dare to accuse them. Besides, Duan Tianlang had been unable to deny the fact that the courtyard didn't deserve its name, which meant that he was recognizing that Lin Feng was correct in what he was saying. He had no argument remaining to defend himself. That's the way it is. You, Duan Tianlang, convinced the biggest sects to hand over their best disciples to you and destroyed the Yunhai sect, then finally created the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. How prestigious! But didn't you know that the Yunhai sect was General Lu Tsanglan's sect? Continued Lin Feng while Duan Tianlang remained uncommunicative. That was a very smart move from your part, Duan Tianlang, because Lu Tsanglan was a disciple of the Yunhai sect. Besides, everybody knows how kind and honest Lu Tsanglan is. You knew that he would never tolerate your actions of destroying his sect. He would definitely come to you seeking revenge. That way, he would be forced to abandon his official functions and would come to the imperial city to try and kill you. Then, you would be able to call him a rebel and damage his reputation and make him lose everything that he has built throughout the years. What a perfect plan. Your methods are absolutely perfect, but what was your agenda when you started to plot against one of the pillars supporting this country? Lin Feng was speaking uninterruptedly. Everybody was astonished by every single word that came from his mouth. That's right. What Lin Feng said was entirely true. That was a demonically perfect plan. However, at that moment, many people thought that Duan Tianlang probably wasn't the one at the origin of this plot. Everybody was shaking. They were moved by Lin Feng's words. After everything that Lu Zonglan had done for his country, who could have dared to plot against him? How tragic. Stop babbling nonsense. Shut up. Shouted Duan Tianlang furiously. An ice-cold qi which smelt like death suddenly surrounded Lin Feng's body. Could it be that I am wrong? That you are not the author of all these horrors, added Lin Feng, who seemed like hadn't noticed that Duan Tianlang wanted to kill him. Lin Feng's last remark shook up the crowd. Of course it was me who was the origin of all of these events. Are you done talking now? Said Duan Tianlang, unperturbedly admitting that he was the one who had undertaken all of this. But could it be that the people in the shadows were actually the ones who had come up with the ideas first? However, there weren't many people above Duan Tianlang in the hierarchy of the country, so if he wasn't the one who had undertaken these horrors, who else could it be? Of course. I see. Since you admit that you are the who started all of this, I would like to ask you, since you plotted against General Lu Zonglan and also hurt and killed so many people of the Xueyu country, are you not a rebel yourself? Is it not still considered a crime if a member of the Duan clan rebels? Asked Lin Feng. He glanced at Duan Tianlang and then at the crowd and said, and all of you who have helped him do evil, haven't you also committed a crime against the country too? The crowd was stunned. Lin Feng was using the arguments, which Duan Tianlang had used against Lu Zonglan, but this time they were directed against Duan Tianlang himself as well as the crowd. Lin Feng believed in justice and knew that he was right with what he was saying. Not the crowd or even Duan Tianlang could deny what Lin Feng was saying. Those who had committed crimes were accusing the innocent people of being guilty. Lin Feng had just brought about a radical change in the situation and was exposing the truth. His tongue was sharp as a sword. If it was another location, then Duan Tianlang would have killed Lin Feng without hesitation. But that was the inauguration day of the holy courtyard of Xueyu in the imperial city, so he had to be prudent and cautious about everything he did. People coming from everywhere in the country were paying attention to his words and behavior. He couldn't attack Lu Zonglan except if Lu Zonglan behaved like he did a moment before when he was ready to attack him. If Duan Tianlang took the initiative to attack, then that would definitely be a rebellion against the country. If Lu Zonglan took the initiative, then its blame would fall onto him. Why did you come to talk nonsense today? On the day of the inauguration ceremony? What evil intentions have brought you here? Duan Tianlang seemed like he had completely forgotten Lu Zonglan and was now getting excessively angry at Lin Feng. Besides, he had changed the subject completely. How am I causing trouble? I just spoke a few truths, that's all. If everybody thinks that everything that I said is unjustified and unreasonable, then I will leave, said Lin Feng. Actually, he had come to the holy courtyard of Xueyu because he was really interested in disrupting the ceremony. Besides, he was hoping to be able to fight against some of its disciples for the sake of achieving enlightenment. But reality had been different because Lu Zonglan had appeared unexpectedly. How could Lin Feng let him carry out a suicide attack in the name of justice when his action would have had nothing to do with justice? Lin Feng found out that his words gave Duan Tianlang the impression that he was being slapped in the face. Lin Feng was quite satisfied even if he thought that it was not near enough punishment for him. General, in this world, justice can be protected if you are powerful, but for that you need to be alive. So please take care of yourself, and at the right moment, you will be able to fight for justice, said Lin Feng to Lu Zonglan, who was surprised. Remember to keep growing stronger. Take care of yourself, only then you can fight for justice. Only those who could understand such things could be really free in the world. Lu Zonglan had come on that day to show that Duan Tianlang had unfairly destroyed the Yunhai sect. Because of his past in the Yunhai sect, he felt like he had to avenge it. He thought that it was the right thing to do. However, in Lin Feng's eyes, Lu Zonglan's behavior was just blind devotion and nothing more. If Lu Zonglan acted recklessly and caused his own death, then wouldn't that make the enemy happy? How could that avenge those who unfairly died at their hands? He was just acting like a desperate man with no other course of action. "General, just leave," said Lin Feng. At that moment, Lu Zhonglun slightly nodded. "Would you like to come with me for a walk?" asked Lu Zhonglun to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was surprised and then said, "All right. After all the trouble you caused today, do you think that you can leave that easily?" said Duan Tianlang, who looked furious. They had humiliated him and the holy courtyard of Xueyu. "I'm taking him for a walk. Who will dare and oppose me?" said Lu Zhonglun while glancing at Duan Tianlang. At that moment, Lu Zhonglun looked like the real divine arrow Lu Zhonglun. At the beginning, Lu Zhonglun wanted to fight but hadn't yet initiated a full-blown conflict. Since Lu Zhonglun wasn't provoking him anymore and hadn't committed any offense, Duan Tianlang couldn't do anything. "Lu Zhonglun, you came here without permission and on top of that caused trouble. Don't forget that these are serious offenses," said Duan Tianlang coldly. "What makes you qualified to proclaim my faults? If His Majesty said that I had committed crimes and wanted to dismiss me, then I would accept his decision. You however are not qualified to speak against me," said Lu Zhonglun indifferently. Duan Tianlang pulled a long face. "Dismiss him?" Lu Zhonglun was a very famous general with a great history on the battlefield. He had accomplished many wonderful things for the country. "Give him a Qi Shui horse," said Lu Zhonglun to one of his troops to his side. Immediately after, a soldier jumped down from his horse and climbed onto the same horse as one of the other soldiers while Lin Feng took his horse. "Let's go," said Lu Zhonglun to Lin Feng. Lin Feng was sitting on the Qi Xie armored horse. Before leaving, he nodded at Meng Qing and the others. Lin Feng felt reassured because Meng Qing was there to protect them. At that moment, Lin Feng passed near Lin Ba Dao and Lin Rui. He looked at them through his bronze mask. They were surprised and didn't understand why that masked man was looking so deeply at them. But at that moment Lin Feng and the other Qi Xie armored horses all left. Lin Ba Dao and Lin Rui, who were confused, just stared at these silhouettes while frowning. Their facial expression remained in an intense frown for a long time. The armored horses were galloping at great speed on an old and ancient road. At that moment, two horses were gradually slowing down. Lin Feng looked around. Milky white smoke could be seen coming from some chimneys in the distance. Surprisingly, they had come a small village. It wasn't that small either. The armored horses were galloping at great speed on an old and ancient road. At that moment, two horses were gradually slowing down. Lin Feng looked around. Milky white smoke could be seen coming from some chimneys in the distance. Surprisingly, they had come a small village. It wasn't that small either. In the continent of the 9 clouds, cultivators were respected and had the power, but there were many ordinary people who didn't have a spirit and who couldn't practice cultivation. "Lin Feng, we have arrived at the border region of Duanren City," said Lu Zhonglun to Lin Feng, pointing at the city. "We finally arrived," thought Lin Feng, seeing that they were getting closer and closer to the city. The Qi Xie armored horses were extremely fast, but as before, the Xueyu country was still as vast as ever. Therefore, they had required 6 days to arrive in this city, which was situated in the north of the country. Duanren City. This road is weird. Everything is open and accessible. Anybody could attack and destroy it, said Lin Feng to Lu Zhonglun. They don't even think about that, replied Lu Zhonglun indifferently, which made Lin Feng shiver. They didn't think about that. In this city, it seemed like there were only ordinary people. They could easily be killed by even weak cultivators. Lin Feng, do you know how huge our continent is? I'm not sure, replied Lin Feng, shaking his head. The continent of the 9 clouds is extremely vast and has many countries. There is the imperial country of you and our country, the Xueyu country, which is inside Xueyu, said Lu Zhonglun slowly, and then continued, Xueyu has 13 countries, amongst which 4 of them are extremely large. Lin Feng was stupefied. He had never heard of Shuiyu. 13 countries, and the Shuiyu country was inside Shuiyu. Lin Feng didn't really understand what that meant. He didn't know what these territories looked like on a map. All of our countries are interconnected. There are agreements in place and our Shuiyu country also respects these agreements. We wouldn't attack each other. However, in case that something like that happened, then the weak would probably become the prey of the strong. Being strong is one of the most important rules in the continent of the 9 clouds. However, every 10 years, the 13 countries choose the most outstanding disciples of their country and organize the Great Competition of Shuiyu. The Great Competition of Shuiyu consists of battles between these disciples. It is said that the winner can win an incredible amount of wealth and items. Besides, the winner has the opportunity to go to a mysterious and secret location to practice cultivation. The Great Competition of Shuiyu, a mysterious and secret location. Lin Feng was shivering. Maybe Luo Shui and Chu Zhanpeng had joined the holy courtyard of Shuiyu for that exact reason. Lin Feng was wondering if there was a correlation between what Lu Zhanglan was saying and the fact that these 2 high officials had chosen to study at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. Nonetheless, there are some countries who wish they could become extremely strong and annex other territories. This is something that is made possible during the Great Competition of Shuiyu. Everything always comes down to power. If they manage to annex other territories, it means that they would gain power and have access to a greater number of outstanding talents. Many countries wish they could become the imperial country. I see. Lin Feng would have never thought that countries would fight each other in the frame of a great competition. You should be able to understand now why they destroyed the Yunhai sect. That is why they are trying to put all their best disciples into one place, the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, said Lu Zhanglan. Lin Feng slightly nodded. They had built the holy courtyard of Shuiyu because they needed more outstanding disciples and they needed to greatly increase the strength of the disciples in the country. They want to kill me because the sphere of influence of my army is too large. They destroyed the Yunhai sect because they want to unify the country under one banner. The other sects have been magnanimous, but at some point, the imperial clan will probably start paying more attention to them and their fate will be the same as that of the Yunhai sect, said Lu Zhanglan while sighing. Lin Feng was feeling angrier and angrier. They definitely had their prey in sight. General, get down from your horses and come drink some water. At that moment, there were 2 people who had come from the village and one of them was a woman. She was the one who had shouted these words to Lu Zhanglan. General, your hair. No time. We are in a hurry. We cannot stop, replied Lu Zhanglan to the woman while smiling. At that moment, many people were coming out of their houses and looking at Lu Zhanglan. Their eyes were filled with respect and admiration. Lin Feng was looking at Lu Zhanglan the same way. The masses had always feared the army, but these ordinary people were looking at Lu Zhanglan with respect and affection. He had managed to win the hearts of the people. Lin Feng found it unfortunate that they weren't in the previous world. Lin Feng thought that a person like Lu Zhanglan could have become one of the most important people in his previous world. He could probably achieve great things. At that moment, another small town appeared in front Lin Feng. General, you came back. Quickly, open the gate. Many people, when they saw that Lu Zhanglan had come back, looked excited. A short moment after, a multitude of people came to the gate. General, shouted the crowd loudly. They all knew that the Yunhai sect had been destroyed and that their general had left to the imperial city because of those events. They were terrified by the idea that their general would maybe never come back. They were thus very happy to see him return safely. When Lu Zhanglan saw all those people, he took a few deep breaths. His heart was filled with joy. These people were his people and their lives were in Lu Zhanglan's hands. I came back, said Lu Zhanglan. He then urged his horse onwards and galloped into the town at full speed. He was moving so fast that the wind around him created whistling sounds as he passed through the air. Lin Feng's Qixia armored horse was closely following Lu Canglan. This town wasn't exactly big and was only a small part of the territory. Lu Canglan lived in another region of the city near another gate. Lu Canglan hadn't arrived yet, but there was a silhouette on a horse was coming towards him. She was urging on her horse forwards using a whip. She was wearing fire-red robes. Father. Lu Fei's eyes were red and full of tears. Not many people understood why he had gone to the imperial city. Lu Fei didn't understand clearly either. When she heard that her father had come back, she rushed over to see him with tears in her eyes. Lu Fei was worried about her father and thought that he may not return alive. Fei Fei, said Lu Canglan. He seemed to be a very affectionate father as he looking lovingly at his daughter. Lu Fei looked at her father and a few seconds later, said, Lu Canglan, you're finally here. How could you be so stupid? Eh. A soldier next to Lin Feng was surprised and couldn't help letting his shock escape his mouth. Lu Fei was really rude. Immediately after, Lu Canglan smiled in an even more affectionate way. It was a wry smile though. After all, he was indeed really stupid sometimes. Alright, Fei Fei, I'm here, are you not happy that I have returned? You are feeling happy that you have returned, but I am still not happy. She said, galloped towards her father and said, Father, promise me that you won't do something like this again in the future. I won't, said Lu Canglan while shaking his head. He then pointed at Lin Feng and said, Fei Fei, you can thank him. He's the one who saved your old father from making a mistake which he could not come back from. Huh? Lu Fei looked at Lin Feng. That young man's robes were full of dirt because of the long journey they had taken to get here. Besides, his bronze mask looked terribly evil the more that one looked at it. The qi emanating from his body was very strange as well. Father, who is this young man? Said Lu Fei while looking at Lin Feng with a perplexed face. Lu Canglan laughed and said, Don't you recognize him? Lu Fei was stunned. Recognize him? She didn't know anyone who went around wearing a bronze mask. Lin Feng smiled and said as a joke, What? Can you not even recognize your boyfriend? When he finished talking, he took off his mask. When Lu Fei saw his face, her lips started to tremble. She was overwhelmed with all different kinds of emotions, but eventually a huge smile which was filled with warmth appeared and covered her face. Lin Feng. The one who was wearing that bronze mask, surprisingly was Lin Feng. And he was the person who had saved her father's life. Lin Feng. The one who was wearing that bronze mask, surprisingly was Lin Feng. And he was the person who had saved her father's life. Lu Canglan looked at Lin Feng's face. He had met Lin Feng only twice and both times, he was wearing a bronze mask. It was the first time that he saw Lin Feng without his mask. He was smiling and seemed like a very good-natured person. Despite his age, he looked mysterious and mature. Only his mouth revealed a frivolous and unruly smile which showed that he probably had a good sense of humor as well. How young, shouted Lu Canglan stupefied and then whispered, how mysterious he seems, almost mystical. The first time Lu Canglan had seen Lin Feng had pronounced a few deep and mysterious sentences which had deeply influenced his thoughts and opinions. The second time that he had met him, Lin Feng had fearlessly contradicted Duan Tianlang, leaving him dumbstruck and unable to reply. He had also damaged the reputation of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. The one who had taken such brave actions inside the imperial city was this smiling young man. These things didn't only require intelligence. They also required a person to be courageous, fearless and quite audacious to dare make Duan Tianlang lose face in front of so many people. It also required a person to be quite unconventional and unrestrained. Lu Canglan would have never thought that such an extraordinary person could be so young. Lin Feng, you just said that you are Lu Fei's boyfriend, suddenly said Lu Canglan, recalling what Lin Feng had just said. He had a strange expression on his face and asked, "Is it true?" Lin Feng suddenly became very shy and scratched his head while remaining silent. Lu Fei was staring at him stunned. "Father, don't listen to that bastard. He's just a despicable pervert." At that moment, she was angry at Lin Feng for having dared say that he was her boyfriend in front of her father. How embarrassing. A despicable pervert. Lin Feng looked very awkward after hearing such words. He then resolutely said to Lu Fei, "Fei Fei, are you not the one who asked me out and said that we were in a relationship in front of everyone the other day? If I'm a pervert, you are one as well." Lu Fei's eyes almost rolled. What a crazy bastard. Lu Zhonglan's eyes were huge and wide open. He didn't understand what was going on at all. Lin Feng stared at Lu Fei's beautiful face, making her blush. Why had she started calling him a pervert again? While looking at both of them in such a strange situation, Lu Zhonglan couldn't help but smile and said, "Fei Fei, that's all right, I have seen enough. Let's go now." Lu Fei angrily looked at Lin Feng and then made her horse turn around. The three of them were riding their horses. Suddenly, many of the soldiers of Lu Zhonglan's army, when they saw Lin Feng with the group, started to approach them. The crowd suddenly kneeled down and bowed to the extent that their heads made a loud thud when colliding with the solid ground. Lin Feng was astonished and found it very strange, especially that these people were not prostrating themselves in front of Lu Zhonglan, or Lu Fei, but in front of him. "Thank you for having saved our general's life." The people in the crowd were thanking Lin Feng one after another. Lin Feng was stupefied. "Please stand up." "There is no need to do such a thing," replied Lin Feng. These people were incredibly strong and had experienced many extraordinary things throughout their lifetime. How could they bow and worship Lin Feng? "Young man, you didn't save only our general's life but you also saved 200 Qixia armored cavalry soldiers. If our general died, our town would probably be in danger and might be invaded. It means that you saved and protected many people's lives with your actions," said a soldier looking solemn and grateful. Lin Feng was still surprised. He had never thought about these things. "Oh, I see, but that's enough, please stand up now." Lin Feng wasn't an arrogant person and everybody could see it. Everybody stood up when Lin Feng told them. They could see that he looked embarrassed from having so much attention on him. "That's all right, everybody can disperse now," said Lu Zhonglan while waving to everyone. Everybody then quietly left. "Lin Feng, these people are not soldiers. They are officers. They are the best elements of my army. They can all lead groups of a few hundred people. I have only 500 officers. I trust them more than anyone else in the world. The soldiers who came with me to the imperial city are all guards. You saved their lives. In the future, if there is an opportunity, they will be your assistants," said Lu Zhonglan. Lin Feng was surprised and replied, "My assistants?" "Indeed, your assistants," said Lu Zhonglan honestly while nodding. He then added, "You noticed that some people want to do me harm. At some point, they might succeed. If in the future you are also involved in these battles, then they will all come to help you." Lin Feng was smiling wryly. Who knew what would happen in the future? Lin Feng noticed the other gate of the town and sighed. They were in the very north of the country at the border with another country. If there was an attack someday, even if it wasn't supposed to happen, Lu Zhonglan's territory would be the first one to be involved in battles. "Fei Fei, you go first. Lin Feng and I are going on a walk," said Lu Zhonglan to Lu Fei. Lu Fei was surprised and strangely stared at her father. "All right," she said while nodding. She didn't ask her father for explanations and left. "Lin Feng, let's walk to the gate," said Lu Zhonglan while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng was also surprised. He didn't know why Lu Zhonglan wanted Lu Fei to leave them alone. "All right," said Lin Feng while nodding. They galloped towards the western gate of the city. There were lots of troops in that area. Even though they were looking at Lu Tsonglan, they didn't move away from their respective positions. They got down off their horses and Lu Tsonglan then brought Lin Feng towards a flight of stairs on the left of the gate. The flight of stairs led to the gate tower, which was very large. They went up all the way to the top of the tower. Lin Feng suddenly just felt an extremely strong and cold wind blowing on his face. Lin Feng then looked at the landscape and was completely amazed. Duanren City, the city of 1,000 blades, thought Lin Feng. In front of him was a vast field which looked boundless. There was a myriad of bladed weapons lying on the ground. Some of these weapons were already completely rusted and worn down over time. Since the battle, I have never given the order to remove these weapons from their positions. I rather prefer leaving them there in remembrance of those heroic souls, said Lu Tsonglan slowly. He pointed his finger at the distance. It looked like a gigantic sword had cut a mountain into two. It strangely resembled the mountain where he could see sunlight shining in the Yunhai sect, the place where Lu Fei used to practice cultivation. That place was surrounded by a moat. As that natural moat was surrounded by high hills, it was easier for Lu Tsonglan's troops to shoot at people who would try and come from that location. They were extremely vulnerable if they came from that location. That place is the border. If you were to go there, then there is a good chance that you will not make it back alive. It's called Duanren border. Duanren border. Logical, whispered Lin Feng. This is the border with the Mou country. The Mou country and our Shuiyu country are very different. In the Mou country, they don't have sects and they are completely united. Therefore, they are much stronger than us as they have a combined power. They have a huge army which is under a single banner. If they weren't scared of my army in Duanren City, they probably would have attacked a long time ago, said Lu Tsonglan. That is why, Lu Tsonglan, a long time ago had spared no effort and had fearlessly led his army into great battles. He had emerged victorious and created a legend which brought fear to his enemies. Lin Feng, you saw how dangerous the situation is for me. Someday, I will probably have my life taken from me, and I'm not speaking carelessly when I say this. Lin Feng understood why Lu Tsonglan had abandoned the Yunhai sect in the past. He had left everything behind to protect his country from invaders. In the Shuiyu country, there were internal and external threats. The situation was extremely complex. Lin Feng, there is something that I would like to ask you. Lin Feng was stupefied. He was staring at Lu Tsonglan. What could Lu Tsonglan have to ask from him? Lu Tsonglan slowly said, please take good care of Fei Fei. Take care of Lu Fei. Lin Feng first blankly stared at Lu Tsonglan and then smiled wryly. It wasn't that easy to take care of Lu Fei. Take care of Lu Fei. Lin Feng first blankly stared at Lu Tsonglan and then smiled wryly. It wasn't that easy to take care of Lu Fei. If only Lu Fei was similar to Meng Qing. But at that moment, Lin Feng was living with Meng Qing. What about Lu Fei? That was a difficult situation for Lin Feng. He didn't know what to do. Besides, Meng Qing wanted to take care of him and wanted for him to tell her stories all the time. Uncle Lu Tsonglan, why do you trust me? When the Yunhai sect was destroyed, they all sacrificed their lives to protect you. If I can't trust you, then there is nobody in this world that I can trust, said Lu Tsonglan while fixedly staring at Lin Feng. He then smiled and said, besides, I think that Fei Fei and you are a very good match. If you want to take care of her forever, I have no objection to your union. Eh? Lin Feng was really stunned. Lu Tsonglan was surprisingly trying to make Lin Feng and Lu Fei become engaged. Because of her incredible beauty, this offer would be hard to resist for any ordinary man. Of course, Lin Feng wasn't an ordinary man. Uncle Lu Tsonglan, I am not that kind of person, but I have listened to what you have to say and I can promise you that I will do my best to take good care of her, replied Lin Feng in a low voice. Lu Tsonglan smiled. He liked Lin Feng. He then said, I understand. I know that you are not that kind of person. Lin Feng, it is Lu Fei who expressed this. When Lin Feng heard Lu Zhonglan's ambiguous words, he felt like crawling into a hole and disappearing from the world. He was extremely embarrassed. Maybe Lu Zhonglan thought that what Lin Feng had meant when he said he was not that kind of person was that he wasn't talented enough when it came to women, but Lu Zhonglan found it strange. But did Lin Feng have a choice? If he refused Lu Zhonglan's offer, it would be too suspicious. When Lu Fei had heard her father tell her that he wanted to spend some time alone with Lin Feng, she felt incredibly furious in her heart. At that moment, Lin Feng and Lu Fei were in her house. Lu Fei angrily looked at Lin Feng and said, What did you tell my father? She remembered that Lin Feng had said that he was her boyfriend in front of her father. It was very possible that her father had misunderstood Lin Feng. At that moment, Lu Zhonglan had asked Lu Fei to leave with Lin Feng without asking for her opinion and gave her no chance to respond. Poor Lin Feng. He didn't want to argue. He was just smiling wryly. Father, I'm not leaving, said Lu Fei while shaking her head and looking at her father. Don't make trouble, Fei Fei. I have made this decision and I will not change my mind. I told Lin Feng to stay in Duanren City for 3 days. 3 days from now, you will both leave together, said Lu Zhonglan strictly. He was extremely firm and strict with his words. Father, shouted Lu Fei, who wanted to say something else but was interrupted by Lu Zhonglan. No. You have nothing to add. I am your father and you will listen to me. Lu Fei was shaking while staring at her father, which made Lu Zhonglan want to take back his words and give her a choice, but he was convinced that Lu Fei had to leave, so he did not take back his words and stayed silent. I'm sorry. I will not disobey. Lu Fei didn't say anything else and ran towards her room with a bright red face. When Lu Zhonglan saw Lu Fei run like this, he felt powerless. Lin Feng felt powerless as well. Because of all the problems Lu Zhonglan had, he would constantly be worried to death if Lu Fei stayed. Some people are really heartless, thought Lin Feng. 3 days later, dust rose all around the galloping horses. Several hundreds of Qi Xia armored horses were galloping on that ancient road. Uncle Lu Zhonglan, you can accompany us to here, we should be fine from this point on, said Lin Feng to Lu Zhonglan. Their horses gradually slowed down and stopped. Lu Zhonglan looked at Lu Fei. He looked reluctant to part with them. He also didn't know when they would meet again. Father, you can go back now, said Lu Fei reluctantly. She was gritting her teeth. Fei Fei, please listen to Lin Feng, said Lu Zhonglan while strictly staring at Lu Fei. Even though Lu Zhonglan hadn't known Lin Feng for a long time, he knew that Lin Feng was extremely strong. He felt reassured to know that Lin Feng was there to take care of Lu Fei. Lu Fei glanced at Lin Feng, nodded and said, Father, I will. Take care of yourself, said Lu Zhonglan while turning around and galloping away. Lin Feng, please take good care of her, shouted Lu Zhonglan from far away. Sister, have a safe trip. Brother, have a safe trip. The cavalry on their Qi Xia armored horses shouted these words to Lu Fei and Lin Feng and left by following Lu Zhonglan. Lu Fei stared at them for a while, motionless. Lin Feng stayed next to her and remained silent. Yesterday, my father told me that he had abandoned the Yunhai sect in the past even though they had taught him so much. He thinks that he is responsible for the destruction of the Yunhai sect. He feels endless regret in his heart about the events which occurred. My father also told me that during the great battle against Duanren border, my mother had been killed. He hadn't even talked to her before she was killed. He feels extremely guilty. My father also said that because of the issues with the Duanren border, he hadn't had time to take care of me, which is why he had sent me to the Yunhai sect. Because he didn't assume his responsibilities as a father, he also said sorry to me, his daughter. My father also said that during the war of the Duanren border, he had lost many of his troops, 100,000 or more. They are buried outside of Duanren city and he is still alive. He feels regret in his heart that he could not save any of them. Lin Feng was calmly listening to Lu Fei. He found all these stories extremely complex. I know why my father wants me to leave. He doesn't want me to get involved. He feels sorry and regrets many things, but one thing I know is that the Shuiyu country should feel regret for what they did and are doing to him. They are the ones who should say sorry to him. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the sky while listening to Lu Fei. Even if the Shuiyu country said sorry to him, that would never be enough. If Lin Feng was strong enough, he would go to the imperial city and ask the imperial clan how they feel about it. He was really curious to know how these people really felt from the bottom of their hearts. Only those who were strong enough could influence others. In that world, if someone was strong enough, he could destroy an entire country with a wave of his hand and no one would stand against him. Lin Feng would never understand why strength was so important in this land. If you want to cry, then you can go ahead. It's okay, said Lin Feng to Lu Fei in a soft and affectionate voice. Lu Fei had too much pressure. What a pity for such a beautiful 16-year-old girl. When Lu Fei heard Lin Feng's words, tears started unceasingly flowing along her beautiful soft cheeks. Suddenly, she started sobbing loudly. She was shaking. She could barely breathe from all the tears that endlessly fell from her eyes. Lin Feng smiled wryly. Girls were all the same. Enough pressure would make them cry even though they tried to hide it. Lin Feng made his horse go next to Lu Fei's one and put his hand on her shoulder. He then jumped down from his horse onto Lu Fei's horse and said, "It's okay, you can wipe your tears on me." Lu Fei turned around, looked at Lin Feng with her eyes full of tears and then pushed her face into his chest while sobbing in his arms. A while after, Lu Fei calmed down. She looked at Lin Feng and said, "You're a real pervert. You're taking advantage of the situation." Lin Feng was stupefied. What a moody girl. It seems like someone is in love with me, said Lin Feng. Lu Fei looked at him and said, "Get over yourself. You like manipulating people, don't you?" said Lin Feng while laughing. He then jumped back onto his Qi Shui armored horse. Lu Fei still had tears in her eyes and her face was red, but she didn't want Lin Feng to see her. "Let's go," said Lu Fei to Lin Feng. The Qi Xie armored horses immediately left as if they were able to understand the ones riding them. They left at full speed. Lin Feng smiled. Making Lu Fei listen to him was going to be such a difficult task. On the old and ancient road, a picturesque scene unfurled of a young handsome boy and an extremely beautiful young girl galloping on their horses, swiftly into the horizon. Outside of the Celestial Academy, 2 horses had appeared. At that moment, the recruitment procedure had already finished. Outside of the Celestial Academy, 2 horses had appeared. At that moment, the recruitment procedure had already finished. A crowd formed and started getting bigger and bigger. People were staring at these 2 Qi Xie armored horses and the 2 people who were on top of them. They were particularly interested in Lu Fei. "The Celestial Academy," said Lu Fei looking at the large gate. She then asked Lin Feng, "Why the hell did you bring me here?" "To practice cultivation, obviously," replied Lin Feng and then added, "Let's go inside." "I don't have a recommendation letter, besides, I will not join the Celestial Academy," said Lu Fei and then continued, "And you shouldn't either, are you forgetting about the Yunhai sect?" Lu Fei was Lu Conglan's daughter, so she obviously knew about the Celestial Academy. "I haven't joined it either and I can bring you in without a letter of recommendation," said Lin Feng while shaking his head. He knew what Lu Fei meant. After so many people had sacrificed their lives to save him, including some elders, studying in another place would be a kind of betrayal to the Yunhai sect. "Don't forget that your father told you to listen to me," said Lin Feng. When he saw that Lu Fei wasn't reacting, he urged the horse forwards and went into the academy. Lu Fei looked at Lin Feng's silhouette and then galloped behind him. She was shocked by the fact that nobody prevented her from entering in the academy. "How did you do that?" asked Lu Fei. She clearly knew that the academy didn't allow anybody to penetrate into the territory of the academy. She didn't know why they would make an exception for her. How could it be that easy to enter? The only explanation was Lin Feng. Besides, he had said it himself a moment before, that she didn't need a letter of recommendation to enter. "Well, it's nothing extraordinary considering who my girlfriend is," Lin Feng said with a smile. Lu Fei angrily stared at him. "What are you looking like that for? I didn't say that you're my girlfriend." "I'm sorry, but it seems like your love for me is not reciprocated," said Lin Feng while arrogantly looking at Lu Fei. That girl thought too much. When she heard Lin Feng's words, she started shaking in anger. That damn bastard. It was the first time that Lu Fei went to the Celestial Academy. She found that the scenery was majestic and imposing. Lin Feng and Lu Fei had arrived outside of the palace where the students' rooms were located. He looked at Lu Fei and asked, "I guess you already know about the 3 different categories of cultivators that are studying at the academy. I know that it produced army officers, government officials and assassins. In Duanren City, my father's army is composed of many people who studied at the Celestial Academy. They are all very strong individuals. Many cultivators who studied here became strong Qi Xie protectors." Lin Feng looked surprised, looked at Lu Fei and said, "Qi Xie protectors? Uncle Lu lets them become protectors that easily?" The Qi Xie protectors were Lu Zhonglan's closest troops. Besides, Lin Feng had asked himself before about the status of the people who graduated from the Celestial Academy. If they could become such prestigious cultivators, didn't it mean that the imperial city had to be supporting it? Lu Fei was looking at Lin Feng as if she was looking at an idiot. "Do you think that my father is that kind of person?" Lin Feng smiled wryly. Indeed. Lu Zhonglan could easily recognize people with high abilities. He wouldn't let anyone become a Qi Xie protector. Here is the place where those who study military skills stay. Even though we are not students of the academy, we have the right to live here. We can study about military skills and techniques. Lu Fei was astonished. She was really wondering how Lin Feng had achieved such a thing. She had asked him already but he didn't reply. She didn't feel like asking him again so she just nodded her head. When they arrived in Lin Feng's living quarters, Yuan Shan and Duan Feng were chatting. When they saw Lin Feng and Lu Fei, they were pleasantly surprised. "Lin Feng, big brother. Lin Feng, my friend." The 2 of them happily said Lin Feng's name in unison. Immediately after, they looked at Lu Fei. Yuan Shan looked at Lu Fei in an ambiguous way. "Lin Feng, big brother, who is she?" asked Duan Feng while looking at Lu Fei in such a way that gave the impression he was worshipping her. Meng Qing and Lin Feng had already decided to live together. How could Lin Feng go out and come back with a new amazingly beautiful girl? "Lu Fei," said a voice behind Duan Feng. Jing Yun walked towards them. When she saw that Lin Feng and Lu Fei were together, she made a strange face. In the Yunhai sect, Lu Fei was considered as the most beautiful girl. A countless number of men were courting her. Since the Yunhai sect had been destroyed, Jing Yun had thought that Lu Fei had died like the others. She wouldn't have thought she would see her again, especially with Lin Feng. Besides, on that day at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, hadn't Lin Feng left with Lu Zhonglan? "Lu Fei, the girl who possesses the divine arrow spirit," said Lin Feng. Duan Feng and Yuan Shan were stunned. That exceptionally beautiful girl was Lu Zhonglan's daughter. No wonder Lin Feng was with her. Jing Yun was even more astonished. She didn't know that she was Lu Zhonglan's daughter until that moment. "Hello," said Yuan Shan, whose expression had slightly changed. His eyes were suddenly filled with respect. Lu Tsanglan was one of the people whom Yuan Shan respected the most. Too bad that on the other day, he had only seen him from far away and hadn't been able to talk to him. He wished he could have followed Lin Feng and Lu Tsanglan. Yuan Shan wasn't the only person who was like that. Many disciples who were studying military skills also idolized Lu Tsanglan. Who was a great general. Who could kill people from very far away with incredible accuracy using his arrows. Lu Tsanglan. Many boys were very excited even if they only heard Lu Tsanglan's name. And Lu Fei was his daughter. When Lu Fei noticed Yuan Shan's fanaticism, her heart was filled with sorrow. Everybody knew how heroic and great Lu Tsanglan was, but nobody knew how difficult the situation was for him. Nobody knew that some people in the country wanted to eliminate him and take all of the power for themselves. Lin Feng, I would like to rest, said Lu Fei calmly. Lin Feng sighed. He noticed that Lu Fei hadn't completely recovered. Here, or do you want to choose your own place? There are many free apartments. Choose one for yourself, said Lin Feng. No need. I'm going to rest in your room, said Lu Fei calmly. Everyone was stunned. Lin Feng was even more stupefied. He was speechless. At that moment, he thought that the most complicated thing to understand in the world was women's logic. Lin Feng scratched his head and said, "It's not very convenient. You should definitely find your own place." "Don't worry, I don't mind." "Why would you?" said Lu Fei and continued, "Where is your place?" "That one," said Lin Feng, who had no alternative, while pointing towards his own room. At that moment, Yuan Shan quickly moved in front of Lin Feng's door and said while shaking his head, "You should choose another place." When Lin Feng saw that Yuan Shan was obstructing the way to his room, he was surprised. Everybody had a suspicious expression on their face. Then, Duan Feng and Jing Yun nodded their heads, indicating that they didn't approve Lu Fei staying in Lin Feng's room either. Nothing worked though. They hadn't managed to convince Lu Fei. "No need. I'll rest here." Lu Fei moved closer to Yuan Shan. Yuan Shan then said, "Lin Feng, my friend, you should get in there first." "All right," nodded Lin Feng. He moved towards the big stone door, opened it and entered his room. Lu Fei followed him. "Who's that? What a terrifying strength," thought Lin Feng. At that moment, an extremely strong qi came out and crashed onto Lin Feng's body. He almost fell down. At that moment, Lin Feng understood why Yuan Shan had told him to enter first. "How kind." "It's me," shouted Lin Feng. Suddenly, the qi disappeared. Lu Fei was standing behind Lin Feng and shaking from head to toe. That oppressive qi a moment ago had almost made her collapse. What a powerful strength. Yuan Shan was outside of the room and had a wry smile on his face. Fortunately, he had asked Lin Feng to enter first. That rumbling sound emitted by the release of that strong qi had resonated in the entire palace. His heart was still fluttering with fear. That girl was terrifyingly strong. "How come you didn't come back earlier?" asked Meng Qing coldly from the back of the room. Meng Qing was still wearing a fine veil on her face as well as her beautiful white robes. She looked so divine, as if she was above the material things of this world. She still looked extremely beautiful. When Lu Fei saw Meng Qing, it seemed her eyes were about to pop from their sockets. At the same time, when Meng Qing saw Lu Fei, her eyes shook for a second and suddenly her eyebrows seemed to indicate that she was extremely unhappy. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.